My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence, that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. This is the elbow cone at the Ontario Town Square. Take a look at the time. This is P.O.C. and this is monitoring, meaning you're a stalker that was already very close and you're close in an airplane miles from the airport, hovering over a building. That's the same thing they're doing over the Stater Brothers, by the way. and they're doing so as I begin physical movement to pick up my property as I begin moving. And everybody on the roads, everybody on Euclid Avenue that's sitting at the red light is stalking with the airport. That's maintaining plane activity. This is aerial surveillance. They're monitoring together via communication devices. So this is P.O.C. This that's flying at this same elevation, hovering over the Stater Brothers, is stalking. Flying over what is on in alignment to Holt Boulevard, they're necessarily flying south, not flying what is the direction west all the way down from the airport. The airport's not in alignment with the town square. So when I'm showing you the documentation and I'm on Holt Boulevard and they're flying west, you are deviating north and south. The street that I'm on, the street where the people are stalking, this runs north and south. They're stalking south of this location to then hover west. When I'm at Euclid going to Upland, they're stalking, flying north and then hovering west. And they're doing so at this time. And this is where I just want to document serial stalker. This entity using this business that's engaged in stalking in the path with light. Literally, as I look at the vehicle, by the way, is what I documented earlier, demons that are stalking with light. And as I look at the vehicle, a demon is in close enough proximity, stalking, using the vehicle as light activity. Okay, that's a demon that uses the vehicle as a means of like setting the alarm or whatnot, and the vehicle lights flash the moment that I look at the vehicle. That's called stalking with light activity, and that's literally a stalker that's using the vehicle as a means of light activity. It's occurring where the entity is stalking with commercial planes. That's the exact same conduct that they are engaging in over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments, over the Wells Fargo Bank, over the 280 North Lemon apartments. Those are the John Stewart Company apartments, over the Metro 102 apartments. Okay, and this is where you're looking at that Securitas that you already know is a gang stalker. Okay, that's not security. AGS at Fontana Lewis Library is not security. Okay, the entity that's engaging in the pattern of conduct, they're engaged in stalking with the government. All right, this is P.O.C. and it's 5:36 a.m. and this is what the entity is doing when I'm aboard Omnitrans, following with planes. And what is the Ontario Police Department doing? Following, stalking, while engaging what is surveillance. This is P.O.C. It's 5:36 a.m. This is P.O.C. License 7 Sam Bob Zebra 755. That's a female. That's a white Hyundai. She's stalking, and that's Southwest Airlines that's stalking. And this is the entity that is stalking as an airport, which is stalking with the people to save the population. And this is totally distinct from a flight to a destination from the airport and a takeoff. All right, this is what the entity is engaging in, and you're looking at where it's supposedly starting. Oh, it's taking off over the El Bacone, and it's still hovering, and it's still loud also, and that is not where planes are taking off. The El Bacone is miles away from the airport. This is P.O.C., okay? You're talking about the entity is stalking while I'm at the Economy Inn at the 60 freeway, stalking at the Airport Inn nearest the 10 freeway, stalking when I'm on the street flying over the top of my head in Montclair, California. That was Southwest Airlines. And that's an adjacent city, miles away from the airport, miles away from the town square. That third party in that white Hyundai is stalking, and she is stalking in furtherance of murdering somebody, and she's doing it while she knows that she's under investigation by the federal government, who would prosecute her as a co-conspirator of murder and a terrorist, and she's still doing it. That's the same analysis for Southwest Airlines, the same analysis for the venue, all of it which is stalking, the same analysis for the Ontario International Airport, and you know that the Ontario police are gang stalking. They're pacing all along on the roads and the highways while the entity maintains psychopathic pacing. Okay, P.O.C. License 7 David Kelly Larry 847, and these are the demons that are engaging in murder. That's how they're going to be prosecuted as well. These are murderers that are stalking in this obsessive manner in front of the whole world. That includes Southwest Airlines is a murderer. I'm not the first person that they've engaged in stalking. This Southwest Airlines plane. Okay, so when I show you the schedule of what Alan D. WAPNER makes available to the public about flights to destinations, this is not that. Southwest Airlines is not headed to Vegas in this direction. Southwest Airlines is not hovering throughout the states, crossing state lines. You're not even going to Vegas in this direction, just for an example. This is the entity that's engaged in this. You're not going to San Francisco or Sacramento, hovering. This is and you're also not, when the entity is engaged in what is merely following from place to place, they're on that side of the street when I'm on that side of Holt. They're lower down in the window of the bus, okay, while they're engaging in this. License 22250 Larry 1. And that's the city of Ontario. That's the P.O.C. Okay? And just to give you context, this is what the people of the state are doing in the adjacent city. That's called stalking with light. Now, the demons that wear police uniforms engaging in that, they are going to prison with regard to what is professional stalking, very highly malicious, psychologically harmful conduct, which is so is this, as the people of the state engaging in it. But those that have engaged in it, they've conspired my murder while wearing police uniforms, stalking with light. Merely blue and red lights with the people of the state pulling them over. Okay? The citation is going to be proof as to why you're going to prison. This is P.O.C. It's currently 6:01 a.m. and that was psychopathic pacing. Our flights to a destination. This is the airport stalking me. This is Stater Brothers at stalking. They're in the store pacing just like that, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth in the aisles and engaging in that while Stater Brothers has engaged in and is repeatedly engaged in. The entity is poisoning my food and then they're engaging in pacing in the bathroom. They're not just stalking, they're monitoring. So these are mentally ill people who are pacing all around me while they're stalking me. P.O.C. Yeah, that is the adjacent restroom, and this is relevant positioning inside of the restroom. Amplification, again, Southwest Airlines outside, monitoring outside, and then following inside, monitoring inside. All right, it is the same venue, 6:07 a.m. This is the sex offender, and that's also engaged in poisoning the food. That's activity creation. And this is the exact same conduct inside of the Fontana Lewis Library, where the entity is following from city to city, and that's the entity itself. All right, engaging in what is surveillance of the use of these devices, and what's going down in this, and you're going to tell your concerning them, stalking. This is an engineer light. Alrighty, that is indeed the P.O.C. This is just ongoing activity creation. And that's amplified audible activity. This is the guise under which, sounding as though the pipes are blowing up in the walls as you use the toilet. And that's why they're there, to create that ongoing audible activity in the engineer light. And outside, Southwest Airlines, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, U.S., ongoing pacing and stalking with light in the parking lot and pacing all inside of the venue. All right, this is mentally ill behavior, and it's also sexually violent, while the entity is also engaged in what is poisoning, and then to come into the restroom just to engage in more stalking in this space. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. All right, walked in, turned on the faucet, just as activity. Didn't wash their hands, didn't dry their hands in the dryer. They just came in to stand next to me, repeatedly flushed this toilet, which does not create that noise in the wall that's following. I documented that pattern also inside of Starbucks, for example. As I would use the toilet, the entities, it's amplified audible activity, so it's demonic, meaning it's not natural. It's not happening naturally. It's demonic activity. And it's a demon-possessed person that's in the adjacent bathroom stall to be present to monitor you, stalk you. Okay, Southwest Airlines is pacing over the parking lot like I just dictated. Kia is the African-American female. She's stalking in the path, monitoring my vagina. And so are all the rest of the employees who are engaged in stalking at the entrance upon my arrival to the front entrance of the store, stalking as I'm walking into the bathroom. They already had a stalker in position. This is 6 o'clock in the morning, where the entity is now including more homeless people because that's supposed to be an explanation for what I pointed out. You're coming from home, moreover, early in the morning to come use the bathroom at the grocery store while you're gang stalking somebody that's sleeping outside. And it's the same pattern of conduct while the people of the state who are homeless are still gang stalking. But nonetheless, this is the entity that's engaged in that. So this is P.O.C. It is currently, this is relevant to the ongoing threat that Stater Brothers poses to the public. The government murders people through facilitating venues like Starbucks. The government engages in psychologically torturing and criminally monitoring in furtherance of murder through venues such as Stater Brothers, okay? And they're engaging in this in what is the specific environment, which engineered light fills this bathroom. All right, and they're engaging in what is coming in, and that appeared to be a Stater Brothers employee with the but that's just, it's the people of the state. But nonetheless, Stater Brothers is being prosecuted, period. But they're coming in to engage in what is monitoring. And they're doing so like the entities stalks with plane at the moment that I make a move. The moment that I went into my backpack is when the demon enters into the bathroom. All right, and the demons are in the adjacent bathroom maintaining surveillance. And I'm entering in at like 6:02 a.m. So you were already in the bathroom in surveillance, waiting for me to expose my vagina, where the entity fills the bathroom with what is amplified audible activity. Okay, flushing this toilet, an electronic toilet, that, and then the entity is creating this boom through the wall. That's activity creation. And the entity is creating a loud booming through the wall following that, and that's the artificially engineered, just like the engineered light, the impossible light when they're driving by. Just as demonic as it is to have multiple shadows when you're standing under natural, what's supposed to be artificial light, that's the impossible light activity. And a stalker comes inside to be in the path that's relevant positioning, and they are specifically monitoring your vagina, your genitalia. This is Stater Brothers that's engaging that. David Quinones, that's also poisoning me, is keeping my vagina under tight surveillance with the people of the state and the government. That includes Southwest Airlines. This is P.O.C. It is 6:12 a.m. This is 646 West Hope Boulevard, store number 108. P.O.C. And stalking with the headlights on, stalking with Kia who's walking in. This is the iteration of the pattern of conduct. This is the cursed woman that's present at the venue at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, gang stalking with the Ontario Fire Department and the Ontario International Airport. That's on video. The fake son is here. So as I walk out of the bathroom and the iteration of the same gang stalking, vagina monitoring, that the African-American female Kia, she's got braces on her teeth. She's gang stalking by being at the register while the people of the state are stalking in line as I'm walking in. So as I'm walking out of the bathroom and they're monitoring everything that I already published onto X, and they're walking into the restroom because that's supposed to rebut. While these demons are gang stalking, they call themselves, you're not responding, you're gang stalking, you're monitoring. And it's also not a response. Because whether it's an employee that goes inside of the bathroom stalking or one of these demons that come from where they live to go into the bathroom stalking, it is remaining stalking on behalf of these vagina monitors maintaining aerial surveillance where flights are not published. Okay? And that's also not to a destination. Very clear stalking by Kia and the cursed womb, AYNC 992, who doesn't mind going to prison. That's what that means. She doesn't mind. And you want to put sex offenders and terrorists in prison. But this is what the entity is doing. Fake son, these are the ingredients. Ontario Fire was back here stalking, coming out of Stater Brothers. Cursed womb was stalking at the back of the parking lot. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, daylight savings time. That's 6 hours from now. Stalking, monitoring my vagina with the city of Ontario. Okay, there are no flights that are scheduled right now, and that's public. You can see that on X right now. And there are no destinations that the entities engage in doing the cartwheels. There's no destination that they're headed to, taking off from the terminals, and doing so while they're hovering over this parking lot. There's also no sun that's going to still be here, as I'm documenting, where David Quinones is being federally prosecuted, where his employees are sharing in what is domestic terrorism. They're poisoning me. That's Lupe. That's engaged in systematic harassment. She's a very angry vagina monitor, very angry sex offender, and she's engaged in this conduct together. And the entity that's engaged in what is gang stalking, this is why they're going to prison as well, because the entity that's engaged in domestic terrorism is merely then just hostile and harasses more when their inevitable fate is prison. Okay, the purchases that the people of the state make is relevant to the federal RICO case. All right, the vagina monitoring that the employees and the customers engage in is relevant to the federal RICO case. The fake sun that is over me now is that which is remaining over me, and as I leave, that fake sun moves. That's how the fake sun is over me in Montclair and then in Pomona, staying in Pomona. And I can remind you about what's over me at the Stater Brothers here at 7:30 a.m. and at Fontana, all at the same time. while the entity is stalking. That was UPS, and before the previous video, that was Southwest Airlines. This is the entity that's maintaining ongoing flight, doing the exact same thing at the Ontario Town Square, where the entity has a fake sun rising and setting, okay? That's P.O.C. The customers are monitoring with the government. This is the pattern of conduct. License 5 Zebra Henry 275. License 7 Uncle Indiana Henry 894. License Charlie Apple Robert Mary 6 Nancy Apple. That's a RICO case. 9 Edward Xavier Victor 732. 9 GWJ 314. Doing cartwheels, hovering over that Southwest, and it is currently 6:45 a.m. The entity is engaging what is Southwest Airlines is flying over the top of my head in Montclair, California, on the sidewalk, and that's not sunlight. All right, it's not sunlight that as it swipes across the wall, the vehicle, the ground. That's a vagina monitor. She's monitoring with Kia, monitoring with the cursed womb. She's got a cursed womb too. But the overweight, box-shaped cursed womb that's here 6 hours later, who's very much focused on me, and so is the Ontario Fire Department and the Ontario International Airport. All right, David Quinones, this is relevant to the RICO case, and it's also relevant to the overall terrorism by the entity. And they're engaging in stalking. So you're stalking not just from place to place, they're stalking literally every move you make. So they're stalking as I walk out of the bathroom, which is behind this wall. As I walk out, this cursed womb is already here, tracking my steps, so knows where I'm at, timing what is the use of the vehicle. The headlights are aimed on me. Cursed womb is right here where you see me starting video. Key is walking in, so they are pacing together. This is Stater Brothers that's engaged in psychological torture while they're engaged in what I'm showing you as criminal monitoring. They're doing so while employed. They're on the job, gang stalking. And this is relevant to what the entire venue is, which is a terrorist and a sex offender. And they're doing it while the Ontario International Airport is presenting evidence regarding what is without any controversy, the prosecution of businesses like Stater Brothers. This is Ontario Village Shopping Center. So I want you to see, Southwest Airlines isn't even going, they're not even gone, and here's another plane. That's FedEx. Just want you to see that, P.O.C. And this is what's going on when Stater Brothers goes into the bathroom, stalking in the pack. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. Now, as I walked out, the headlights are on, aimed on me, sexual assault and battery. Cursed woman is already in position. The shopping cart, that's the iteration of the P.O.C. And they're pacing together. That's all the employees, the bakery. I'm getting this because the entity is already prosecuted. This is what the entity is engaging in. But these are the sex offenders inside the venue. All right, gang stalking in every department that they work in other words. Maintaining surveillance in the area, but they're engaging in that pattern of conduct throughout. And this is the same grocery store that has engineer light as I've shown on the ceiling, flying in the air while I'm in line, covering the hallway while multiple shadows are around. And they're engaged in that pattern of conduct while the government is openly exposing that. Okay, like I said, just as C. Torres knows that he's going to prison while the Ontario police are openly gang stalking, so do the people of the state. And this is the entity that's letting you know that they are I've already shown you that, but this level of sloppiness, of openly engaging in terrorism and criminal conduct and public corruption. These are indeed those that are engaging with a systematic murder. These are angry, hostile murderers. So I guess in your anger and hostility, you just show everyone what it is. They don't even, in other words, have an intent to cease to engage in terrorism, number one. But number two, try to not appear as the blatant stalkers that they are. You're looking at unadulterated, just unabashed gang stalking. All right, and this is the entity, they couldn't hide it from me anyway. You can't conceal it from me anyway. So now you're openly engaging in it. And there's a body of evidence, and this is putting every single department in Ontario and removing Paul Leon from office. He's not just being removed, he's being prosecuted. He's losing, he's going to prison. All right, this is the pattern of this is what the entity's doing over West Valley Detention Center, by the way. This low, that large plane, this is exactly what they're doing over West Valley Detention Center, and that's Shannon Dykes' engagement in the pattern of conduct upon kidnapping with the gang stalkers of the Ontario Police Department. So you're looking at this, and this is exactly what they're doing while kidnapping at what is San Bernardino Avenue and Etiwanda, also where there's no airport takeoffs. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and that's what they provide. And in the courtroom, the entity, regardless of the terminal assignment, regardless of what we can engage in what is doing cartwheels all we want, and no, you cannot. No, actually you cannot. And you're also engaging in that while you're monitoring the evidence, the level of impunity regarding the murderer, that is UPS, that's clearly I just want to be clear, that's the disregard that they have with those people they killed in Kentucky. This flagrant engagement, because that's what you're looking at. That's how they feel about killing people. UPS, a plane crash in Kentucky was not an accident. It was under the fake sunset, and this is where the fake sun remains until the evening. This is where the fake sun sets in California, not leaving the same venue, unless I leave. All right, you're seeing the entity showing you exactly what they are. These are this is the demon-possessed entity that's engaged in poisoning American citizens, just like Stater Brothers, engaged in ongoing criminal activity in front of the world, all over the internet. They're going to be civilly and criminally prosecuted. You're talking about going to prison. And that's exactly what they are, going to prison, and they're still engaging in it. That's letting you know about the threat that's posed to this country. These are not businesses. This is surveillance. Stater Brothers is surveillance. UPS is surveillance. FedEx is surveillance. Southwest Airlines is surveillance. License 7 Nancy Robert Victor 861, surveillance. This is P.O.C. All right, the fake sun is here at 6:50 a.m. and this is what an entity is engaging in, and you're looking at what's published on the website. So the flights that are published to destinations are gang stalking. While the entity uses the Southwest Airlines, uses UPS and FedEx, that's still gang stalking. Okay, it is the entity that's engaged in the same exact elements of monitoring. There's no getting out of it, and they are that desperate, and also they are that maniacal to engage in it on camera. Where people like Mike Lorenz and Alan D. Wapner, this demon-possessed Jew, because that's what he is. He claims that he's a Jew. Okay, well, he's demon-possessed. All right, this is the entity that's engaging in that P.O.C., and there's severe consequences. That is this is to inform you about what is out here. What is the beast system? Because they have clearly already forfeited. They already lost. This may do this on camera because these are not same people. This is aerial surveillance, and it's all concerning my vagina as well. Every employee inside of Stater Brothers is going to be federally prosecuted. The entity is engaged in what is surveillance and furtherance of murdering me, poisoning me on behalf of the government, that's stalking literally at the venue, and they're engaging in harassment and psychological torture, literally stalking me and furtherance of murder with the very customers, which include showing the entire pattern of conduct while the government engages in this petty means of stalking. This isn't hurting my feelings. You're going to prison. License 8 Yolanda Nancy Charlie 992. And everything, all transactions are relevant to a RICO case. It's all criminal activity while they're walking in and out, while they're on the property. This is P.O.C. The government's maintaining surveillance. There's no warrant or probable cause. That's literally, you're already prosecuted by being here because of the environment and the government that you see engaging in conduct with the people of the state are doing so absent any warrant or probable cause, while they are absurdly, okay? P.O.C. Currently, 6:52 a.m. and this is Lupe engaging in what is considered conduct threatening my life and safety. That's she did the same thing with Amazon Prime while she's engaged in what is gang stalking me in this parking lot, and Amazon Prime was engaging in acting like they're landing. All right, lowering an elevation while flying over the El Pollo Loco. The Stater Brothers, again, was targeting me with their gang stalking customers. That is, again, the basis to remove Stater Brothers. They're way too much and way too long regarding the criminal conduct and also the threat that they pose to the public. What you need to take from this, not only they're being prosecuted, but this is the way in which, in the beast system, people are mysteriously murdered. While they're poisoning the foods that I purchased, this is what the government is engaging in, the ways in which, this is one of the ways in which, one of the avenues, one of the many, many tactics of harming American citizens, okay? And you don't know that targeting and surveillance is underway. You do know now. The entity is engaged in what is very much selling food that is tampered with, selling food that is unhealthy, food that is harmful, and then claiming that there's an FDA warning that you need to know about. No, that was deliberately underway, and they're gang stalking you as well. They are very much engaged in poisoning the American public. License 8 TEY 075 POC. Alrighty, this is again more concerned with surveillance, and more than they are concerned with maintaining a demeanor of any sort of non-relation to allegations and the evidence of gang stalking. This is the pattern of conduct that the commercial airlines are sharing in. Starlux is going to be prosecuted just like UPS. This is the P.O.C. It is currently 6:53 a.m. This is the entity providing that. That's mentally ill behavior. So it's going on the playlist regarding psychopathic pacing, because that's the significance of the environment. It's not just stalking. This is monitoring. This is speaking to obsession and mentally ill behavior. They're pacing on the roads right here, monitoring. This is a mentally ill behavior, and that's a mentally ill system that's operating a business, which is a threat to the public. They're also a threat to the public while they're poisoning customers and stalking them and monitoring them and harassing them. And the entity that's stalking by plane, it's directly going to be used against Stater Brothers, because that's what they're doing inside of the store, stalking. And the employee literally went into the bathroom to stalk me, while I then walk outside and I show you that they're stalking. And they're doing so with the customers who are stalking, as I can use 8YNC 992 as an example, where 6 hours later, the fake sun is still here. That's why it doesn't matter what airline you're using. And they're also doing so outside of what's published regarding flights to a destination. This is an entity that is monitoring evidence, and there is no getting out of the P.O.C. Now what you are looking at is the demon-possessed that are forced to show you who they are and what they're doing. And I suggest you take heed. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. David Quinones. You're talking about what is federal prison for this entity that has poisoned me and are engaged in what is monitoring me in furtherance of murder for money. Okay, that's P.O.C. It is currently 6:55 a.m. I'm going to show you, this is again seconds later. This is another flight right here, just stalking in the path with the people. They're all stalking. Cintas is stalking. This third party, all the traffic is surveillance. And the fake sun moves from the corner. Stater Brothers moves as I move. This demon is over here maintaining presence in the path. It doesn't matter what direction you're looking in. This is stalking. And it's at 6:55 a.m. where the entity has a flight to a destination at 6:55 a.m. And at 6:55 a.m. when you are taking off, you're not flying miles away. You are present stalking in the path. And that's Southwest Airlines that's not going to Denver. By engaging in cartwheels right here. This is what the entity is committing as I just captured a 12-minute video. And the entity is just maintaining flight after flight after flight because they're using UPS and FedEx and Southwest airline planes. They're doing so with regard to the same elements of monitoring. And this is letting you know that Amazon Prime, UPS, and FedEx, like I've been documenting, are gang stalking. And it doesn't matter what airline. This is illustrative. There are no flights that are hovering over this venue when you're going to a destination. So the entity is essentially, by using the couriers, in other words, FedEx, UPS, you're stating, okay, well, we'll use those that don't have a particular destination to a state to engage in the exact same conduct that Alaska Airlines is engaging in, stalking, flying over this parking lot, that Delta Airlines is engaging in stalking, flying over the top of my head at the same address, while the entity is monitoring my evidence. This is an entity that's highly unintelligent. They are but that's a threat that they're so unintelligent. They murder people and they don't think about anything because they don't have any consequences because everybody's dead. Everybody is silent. People that are dead are silent. Okay, so you're looking at, I'm capturing highly unintelligent people because they're not humans. These are spirits. These are demons. And they're going to be held accountable in court. That which they're not thinking about that, even though your vessel is going to be in federal prison. That's relevant to the entity using any airline. What FedEx is doing is going to prosecute every single airline. The fake sun's not over just Terminal 4 where Southwest Airline is. That fake sun remains over everyone everywhere. There is no airline that's going to be flying over here. Wherever UPS is taking it, they're stalking, they're targeting in this area. And it's also to a scientific degree. This isn't even the sun. I don't know what point of evidence that the entity is believing is going to be disregarded or ignored or superseded. But this is the entity that's engaging in the same exact pattern of conduct. And they just provided 12 minutes to put this is where the fake sun is at 12 o'clock in the afternoon when the cursed womb is stalking. She's parked here in the parking lot. The Ontario Fire tracking my steps, stalking, obsessed with me as Michael GERKEN is. And the entity has the fake sun. And this is exactly what they're doing, stalking in the path. Just like they are using a smaller plane, stalking in the path under the fake sun that's right here in this parking lot as I'm documenting. During daylight savings time, during the 12 p.m. hour, where the sun would not be present at the same location 6 hours later. And you know that because when I'm in Fontana, California, then all of a sudden, how is it remaining here? But it's also over me in Fontana, over the Fontana Lewis Library. And when it's doing that, how is it ever in Pomona, California? You're not looking at this over the Pomona Regional Transit Center. This is not over the Fontana Lewis Library simultaneously. But then you have these idiots that represent multi-million-dollar companies. And these are unintelligent demons. They're not humans. They're not making business decisions. This is not what they're doing. Their unabashed psychotic disorders are coming out while I have exposed the truth, removing the illusion. Now you can see Satan very clearly. Satan is going by UPS, Southwest Airlines, United Airlines, Delta Airlines. This is the demon possessed. They are not prudent business makers, making prudent business decisions. They're engaged in monitoring. They're mentally ill, in fact. And that is including those that are going into the bathroom inside of Stater Brothers. That's direct evidence to prosecute. You're a sex offender. You're stalking. You're doing so as an employee. You're doing so as an airline. You're doing so as a population that goes into the grocery store. Homeless or coming from a place where you live like the cursed womb to engage in stalking me under a fake sun. Using all of the airlines, including FedEx, UPS, Amazon Prime, Southwest Airlines, Alaska Airlines, that's going to Honolulu, was stalking over this parking lot. This is P.O.C. Alrighty? I just wanted to show you that, and this is what an entity is doing with regard to what is published online, as though that's a response. In the same manner, the demon-possessed that are stalking in the bathroom, you're coming from home, and then you're coming to this grocery store at 6 o'clock in the morning, right when it opens, when you're coming from home and you're going to the bathroom as well, and the entity calls, oh, okay, no, we'll have homeless people in the bathroom when it opens. Oh, no, we'll have the employees that were here when it opens, because that makes it more realistic. There is no such thing as being a realistic state or third-party actor. It is the same criminal elements of monitoring. They're unintelligent. They're demons. They're unintelligent, but it's evidence of them monitoring everything. Bitco is a gang stalker. You already know that. 25383 Edward 2, I believe. And Bitco Foods is gang stalking. That driver has the communication device in their hand under the fake sun. But you don't have to describe all that. It's all surveillance. The fake sun is still here as I'm documenting 6 hours from now. All right, the P.O.C. And you're remembering on that day, the entity is gang stalking by the Ontario police, okay, who are stalking on this street, San Antonio. Everybody is prosecuted by this idiocy that I'm documenting. Their idiocy. But the demon-possessed are engaging in what is criminal conduct. They're murderers. This is how they acquire wealth. By poisoning and killing people. Psychologically torturing them in order to falsely depict their character. That's how they acquire wealth. They are very imprudent business decisions, because this is your whole business. Is your business going to live or die? And they're all going to die. This is the pattern of conduct. You just handed it over to me. All of them maintaining these multi-million-dollar companies. Why are they stalking me using all of those resources? And you are stalking. Science is testifying against you. And your mental illness is at the forefront. You're unwell, very unwell. And you're looking at the same pattern. Psychopathic pacing, using the smaller planes. This is the same city of Ontario. Paul Leon is going to prison, folks. Mike LORENZ is going to prison. Those people are going to prison, all of them. And they know it. And so you have the fat, cursed womb stalking me with Kia, who she's not skinny either, gang stalking while they know they are already caught. This is the entity that's engaged in that. This is informing how much you need to be paying attention. This is terrorism. And this is an entity that, in the face of the government, I suppose in front of the whole world, they're going to commit a sacrifice and no one's going to know. And you're just going to talk about how you were headed to Upland, California, to the Cable Airport, or to the airport that's, headed toward what is some other sort of venue, and in the specific environment. It makes no sense. The entity is engaging in what is a very clear P.O.C. It's so clear, the fact that it's supernatural is what's providing clarity. So in the same way that you're struggling to at first acquire understanding regarding the P.O.C., it's supernatural. That same feature that is supernatural is providing clarity about what you're doing, targeting, under all circumstances, targeting. All right? This is the entity that's engaged in that, and they're demons. Demons that are operating these vehicles, stalking with light. Comet Electric in Pomona, California. All right, gang stalking, light activity, while the entity is stalking me on the roads and the highways. And Comet Electric is a sex offender molesting, license 44537 Robert 3. The exact same thing that the Ontario Fire Department did under what is a fake sun 6 hours from now. Targeting. Comet Electric that hires any immigrants, they're being deported. And Comet Electric will be liable for facilitating terrorism, funding terrorism, while gang stalkers that are potentially even immigrants are engaged in the pattern of conduct. Doing so with all these companies, because these represent companies. This is civil and criminal at the same time. I'm going to prosecute. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that's obsessed with my vagina. I document it, and they give me everything that I'm already taking in the courtroom. Okay, so this is the pattern of conduct. I just want you to see that. And this is the entity that's so inept. Like, I had to show you a video of the plane schedule. I didn't have to. So now they're using the smaller planes. Like, you forgot about that in the video. Like, the bigger picture isn't already aware. This is an entity that's that inept. They're going to prison. They're going to federal prison, okay? Because this is about what I showed you here. You already know that when UPS and FedEx and Southwest Airlines are flying over, they are the ones that are thinking about the right now, here and now. And right now, you're stalking. 6 hours from now, they know that you're stalking. It's on the record, and nobody forgot about that either. The entity's not thinking about the big picture. They're thinking about right now, like my vagina right now, even though you're going to prison for it tomorrow. This is the P.O.C. Alrighty, that's the entity that's gang stalking, and everybody else is being federally prosecuted. And beyond a reasonable doubt, they're already prosecuted. 9 Nancy, Robert Paul 054, pacing 6 Bob 0 Kelly 713, pacing. Maintaining aerial surveillance and surveillance on the roads and the highways where the people of the state are murderers, equally mentally ill. They have the same demon-possessed condition, same criminal surveillance system. They're not having car accidents, they're monitoring. They engage in attacking each other. And then they maintain a whole insurance system. The insurance industry is funding that. License 9 Victor Jerry Nancy 480. They're stalking on the roads and the highways. The sun is not still going to be over this street. Hold on, let me show you this. The sun's not still going to be over this street like I'm documenting where the Ontario police are stalking. Okay, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The fake sun is still here. And they're engaged in surveillance. Just like it's very clear when they're stalking by helicopter last night, while I'm uploading onto X, it's very clear they're going to prison. C. Torres is going to prison. Mike LORENZ is going to prison. Okay, Jay Hernandez, that's engaged in criminal summoning. That's what it is. The perspective, the context is given when you're on the opposite side of this street. You're engaged in what is pulling over these stalkers using police lights. That's what Common Electric is doing, stalking with light. That's a demon. At 4 o'clock in the evening, and this fake son is still on this street right here at Superior Grocer, he's going to prison. This is P.O.C. while the entity is flying plane after plane. The city of Ontario is stalking. That's the perspective that they're not maintaining, while the psychopaths are plane after plane after plane. They're pacing. Vehicle after vehicle after vehicle. They're pacing. They're stalkers. With light that's not even sunlight. In the same way in the bathroom, it's not the noise that's coming from flushing the toilet. While a bunch of zombies. He's a zombie. He's a vagina monitoring zombie. Okay? With deep, serious psychological issues. And also spiritual ones. Mental illnesses of a spirit. And this spirit is engaged in criminal surveillance in furtherance of murder. And it's also the government. So you are going to literally drain the government, prosecute them, and remove them from position. All right? That's P.O.C. It is currently, this is another video. I just wanted to capture that. This is an entity that's very inept. Okay? So I'm pointing out points to you. But this is something that this is automatic. No federal court, and this investigation is not forgetful of anything. These demons are literally, they're far too ignorant, very, very dumb to be engaging in this. You're handing over multi-million, not only money, but literally the company. It doesn't even, you're not even going to exist. It's a threat to the public. All of these airlines, they're a threat to the public. They are a threat. And under martial law, you're talking about ceasing their ability to operate under any circumstances because they are a threat to the public. And this is the evidence that's showing that. Okay, it's a risk to your life getting on board any of these planes, just like UPS is just crashing into people and killing them. While they're gang stalking me. The fact that you're using that money and all that time, and the more that I document, the more you engage, they're psychotic. Psychotic. All right, Southwest Airlines, the entity is gang stalking me at the Ontario Town Square. Okay, well, the first flights today started at 6:30, according to the website. They were stalking me during the 5 a.m. hour. That's what my documentation shows. And then they follow to the Ontario Village Shopping Center where I'm at now, where the fake sun rises. And my documentation shows it sets right here at the same location. In fact, I'm standing at this exact location at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, like I stated, where even the same actors are gang stalking. And they think if you change an airline company, that's changing the analysis. That's what's out here engaging in what is murder. Very unintelligent. This is P.O.C. Now they're across the street. Remember, while I'm at the entrance, this is where they're hovering. Okay? Kia is stalking. The customers are stalking. They're stalking with light. They're mentally ill. And they are stalking using commercial airline planes. Okay? That's speaking to targeting by UPS, by FedEx that you just saw on video, by Southwest Airlines. As you're looking at the ongoing presence, as I move, they're not flying on this side like they were, plane after plane, remaining on this side. And that is the entity that is gang stalking. That's United Airlines. That's United Airlines. Okay, that is, again, you're talking about what Hope Boulevard is? At the 10 freeway, at the tail end of what is Vineyard. It is currently, by the way, 7:09 a.m. This is the entity that's maintaining, 7:09 a.m. going to Chicago O'Hare, Portland. Oh, that's Alaska Airlines. Delta Airlines. That's not Delta that just flew over, but Seattle, Atlanta, these are the destinations. And there is no flight where you're taking off from these terminals, Terminal 2, Terminal 4, where you're hovering over Hope Boulevard, okay? And as you saw Southwest Airlines, don't forget, this is what I'm saying, they're very intelligent. You saw Southwest Airlines flew over and immediately followed with UPS and FedEx, is what it was. And they're just veering off over here and they're maintaining flights. The entity is engaging in what is stalking and engaging with the same airlines, cartwheels, and what matter. You're talking about the totality of the facts, that they're under all circumstances doing it under the fake sun. They're doing it when I get on this bus and this fake sun is moving with the bus. I'm standing here. I'm showing you the exact opposite. That's the same bus driver yesterday. And the fake sun is moving behind the bus on video. She's molesting me with light on the bus, on the inside, and then I show you at the Pomona Transit Center on the outside. That's where Delta Airlines, United Airlines are stalking. There's no takeoff. The takeoffs from the airport are not hovering over Emporia Place and over American Stereo Master and over the parking lot of Stater Brothers and on the opposite side of the street.
Delta Airlines is engaged in stalking, and so is every other company, all right? This is P.O.C. This is going on the podcast. These are lengthy videos. I'm going to include them on the podcast as well. This is the extensive documentation regarding real-time stalking as an airport. This is government action. This is the type of conduct that American citizens are subject to without that in-depth understanding, but they are nonetheless subject to what is psychopathic means of hunting them down, stalking them, pursuing them, psychologically tormenting them. And they do that but while they are planning to and engaging and fully engaging, and this is what they are doing. They're murdering people. Delta Airlines is a murderer. Delta Airlines is a sex offender. All right, Delta Airlines, they're talking about what is mentally ill conduct. Who's flying this plane while they're doing the same thing over here on this side of the street? There's no airport that they're taking off from over here. This is the entity that's hovering in Montclair while I'm on the sidewalk. Okay, this is the entity that is in dearly disturbed. This is what's crashing into mountains and the bodies of water, claiming that they can't find the black box and don't know what happened. They're acts of terrorism. They're gang stalkers. They're demons. All right, and that's the same for companies such as Comet Electric. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, it is currently 7:11 a.m. and this is also the entity Omnitrans is stalking, and I already have that employee's number as well. That's light activity. While I'm here, and the entity is maintaining what is flight, Alaska Airlines. They're doing so while the entity has this fake sun in the same position at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's also prosecuting Alaska Airlines for targeting, state targeting. And they're doing so with the police that are Alaska Airlines is targeting in order to commit kidnapping, in order to commit murder, and it is a threat to the public. And this is what is going to be the grounds of removing these companies altogether after they are severely drained, suffocated of their finances, whereby they've been engaged in profiting off of murdering people, targeting them. Okay, and they do this while they fly in and out of the United States and while they cross state lines. This is P.O.C. It is currently 7:12 a.m. All right, stalking at Vine and Holt with the Ontario International Airport. This is a Latino male in a very old, dirty Chevy truck, license 6 Windy 86269, at the Vos Church at the intersection of Vine and Holt, where the entity, their takeoffs are starting farther back as I'm progressing east. So the takeoffs are going backwards, starting. So you're initiating now over like the United States Postal Service, 123 West Holt Boulevard, where you are engaged in that pattern of conduct. All right, the entity is stalking by plane over Emporia. License 48289 Frank 3 is stalking as well. They're on the roads and the highways, and there's also traffic cameras here. This is relevant to what is surveillance on the roads and the highways, where the entity is maintaining aerial surveillance and they're acting in sync with the people. 8 Victor Frank Yolanda 902. That's a Honda Civic. Comet Electric is stalking again, 6U90484. And by stalking again, meaning they're maintaining ongoing crossing a path. So they're engaging in that. That's the significance of what Kia is doing. Kia is a demon, all right, and she's a gang stalker. So she's a co-conspirator of murder. She's into killing people. She's into maintaining a fake existence. She's secretly hateful of herself and literally her existence. And so are all the rest of the people of the state. So you have the demon that works at the bakery at the register to cross path with me as I walk out of the bathroom. And Kia went out of her way to walk inside to cross path with me. That's the significance of what they're doing. They're monitoring. These are demons who engage in gang stalking you by crossing your path. They're pacing all around. And the entity, that's just breaking down the significance of what they're doing. License 9COA412, 9EYE900. The entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct while they are monitoring the evidence. So the entity is engaging in that while, again, it's supposed to be significant. Like this fat box-shaped cursed womb that comes to the grocery store, she's going to prison. Her and her cursed womb, I could not care less. Kia, this is not hurting feelings. This is informing you about how psychotic the demon-possessed are. The demon-possessed that are not aliens. They're not robots. These are people that look like you and me, and they're engaged in the criminal pattern of conduct. They're demon-possessed. Do not be deceived. Do not be confused. They're demon-possessed. They have the spirit of Satan compelling them. They speak as Satan. They conduct themselves as Satan, and this is a satanic targeting system. So while they are engaged in what is referred to as crossing your path, they're doing so in the light. It's relevant to monitoring your person, monitoring your devices. They do so with regard to what is also spiritual. So this is just to understand the psychological part of it. They literally hate you. So if you expose, Kia's monitoring my vagina in the bathroom like I did, She's at the register. She left the register in order to cross path. As I'm walking out, then she's walking in. She's crossing my path while the entity's already stalking by plane in order to track my steps while the cursed woman is outside. Headlights aimed on me at the shopping carts. They're monitoring together. That's light activity, relevant positioning. They're pacing, using the devices. The demon at the register's got her device out, and they're all angry. And they keep smiles on their face while they're doing it. License 9 Bob Sam Xavier 664. That's a female stalking. 91640 Yolanda 2. SoCal Gas is stalking. Okay, surveillance underway inside of your homes, controlling the electricity and the gas. I've already gone over that, especially while the entity was monitoring me inside of my apartment in Los Angeles and monitoring me inside of Tracy Banks' apartment, which is a facilitating venue. I've gone over that already. But yes, they are monitoring also on the roads and the highways, and the business itself is a state actor. But nonetheless, the entity's engaged in that, and Kia's a psychopath. She's smiling while she's doing it. And then she's doing so with, again, this is a communication of hostility. You're going to prosecute for what is harassment. So this is, again, whatever they consider this to be significant to them. They are mentally ill. They are demon possessed. They are literally stalking, and they are admittedly so. And while the government is stalking, Stater Brothers is being prosecuted for stalking. And you're stalking in furtherance of murdering me. You've also committed what is poisoning me while you're stalking with the government that's admittedly stalking. You're going to prison. The entity's engaging in this while you are walking out of the store. In other words, Kia has to, she's coming out now. She has to engage in crossing my path by participating in what is crossing my path by not merely being at the register. She wants to cross path by walking by. It's all very pathetic. If you think about what they're doing, they're tracking my steps, so she literally goes out of her way, making sure the cursed womb is there. They're all cursed wombs, by the way. They all give birth to demons. They can't give birth to sane, healthy people. They are plagued with the spirit of Satan. These people are dead, and they give birth to death, okay? That's what's wrong with their children. So the entity's engaging, and that's what I mean by cursed womb. They're demons. So the entity's engaging in that conduct, and she is going out of her way to go outside so that way she can walk back in, and it's supposed to be coincidental, just cross it. No, she's doing so with regard to very specific timing. They listen to everything and watch what I publish on X, and so then you're timing when the plane is crossing path, when the headlights are aimed on me, when you're walking to the grocery cart, when you're walking in by me, while you have your communication. This is how detailed, and you know that it's that level of detail. They have a whole fake sun. You're spending millions of dollars using the commercial airline companies. The business, what they're publishing on the website is just a cover. The Ontario International Airport's engaged in and is committed to surveillance. And it's the same with the airline companies. They're not about flying you to a destination. They will crash that plane into the river, into the ocean, into a mountain, and take you out when Satan gives the word. This is surveillance. They're committed to terrorism, for profit at that. It's not about the business itself. That's why they have literally sacrificed their business, their future, their liberty, their family. They don't care about their family. If you cared about your family, Mike LORENZ wouldn't be already headed to prison and he's not having a dime. Whoever is married, whoever relies on his retirement, you're not getting a retirement. You're not getting a 401k. You're not getting none of that. Whatever it thinks that he's hoarded off to the side, he's not getting any of it. If you love your family, if you're concerned about that, you wouldn't be out stalking me by helicopter, because that's going to affect you and them, especially when you're in prison. So they're going to have to figure it out. This is an entity that's engaged in that. They do not care about each other. They don't care about themselves. I am that important. Spending millions of dollars, including millions of people. And this is supposed to be something that they were successfully supposed to just easily execute, all right, like they do everyone else. Okay, very bothered by what it is that I state about them. And what I state is what they do. And I'm not going to put it in nice terms so that they feel comfortable, so that you feel comfortable, you that approve of these things, you that do the same things. It's evil, period. You're a sex offender, you're a sex offender. The sickness behind having children, and you're monitoring vagina all day long. You're a stalker, and you got a baby in your hands. Yes, I'm going to point out that clear contradiction. Absolutely. They're demons. They're demons. And by the way, having babies, this is the demon-possessed effort at trying to look as compassionate, trying to look normal like you. It softens what they are trying to hide, the fact that they appear wicked, the fact that you might discern wicked and evil. They hide behind puppy dogs. They hide behind cute little kittens. They hide behind what are their demon-possessed children that are supposed to look innocent. And that's the change, again, if you will, a spiritual perception. And that very much is happening subconsciously to you. All right, but you're not going to be deceived by illusions. You can see evil for what it is under that fake sun, and very clear and obvious. Over the Stater Brothers parking lot, plane after plane after plane after plane after plane. I don't have to do a video with the schedule of the planes. and it doesn't change. I don't have to do that. I do this for your information. Let me show you how psychotic they are. Okay, because they think because in the video, I don't include the schedule, which is already part of the evidence, that which a federal court is going to rely on. I've already covered my bases. I am embarrassing them and prosecuting them and making points against them, showing you what they're doing with this level of what they're doing with this level of obvious engagement and targeting, so that you understand. I have receipts for receipts. This is ridiculously idiotic, like absurdly stupid. This is the very, very obvious. And you've got a multi-million-dollar company. I'm taking that. And not only that, now I don't even, you're talking about just taking it as a matter of principle because you're so idiotic. And by the way, the demon-possessed don't need to have these companies. They're killing people with them. They're engaging in criminal activity with them. What do you think Bezos and Amazon is? What do you think that is? It's surveillance. They're engaged in obsessive surveillance. Amazon Prime loves stalking me and flying over the top of my head in all the cities that I've documented. Okay, they are gang stalkers. They are terrorists. And I want to be clear, the company itself is a person under the law, and Amazon is a terrorist. Amazon is a sex offender. So that's why I just want to get to that. And this is the entity that's very much mentally ill. It makes you feel better to walk by me, because that's what I call that. You're just walking by me. You want to walk by me because it's significant. They're doing so in engineer life. These are demons, and they're engaged in what is spiritually significant. It's a ritual, if you will, while they're engaged in that. And they're engaging in what is harassing you, because you're going to prosecute and legally analyze the facts regarding what Kia is doing with the airline company and with customers that are engaged in harassing me with Stater Brothers. And that's fine, because Kia and her braces can go to federal prison where she won't be able to shave her beard. This is the P.O.C. All right, that's the entity. You're going to prosecute them for that. It's 7:28 a.m. P.O.C. All right, this is employee number 4128. She's engaged in criminal monitoring. She's a co-conspirator of my murder. She's engaging in the state surveillance system through the operation of the transit line, Omnitrans, that's gang stalking me, which is proven while her co-defendant, the coach operator that I'm riding the same route at the same time yesterday, which is in Ontario, California, the bus that came from Pomona, California, where the entity had the fake sun over me. And the entity is engaging in what is surveillance of my evidence. The fake sun that she is under is covered up, which is a criminal act of obstruction of justice, which is also putting her in prison. The entity is showing the fake sun and covering it up while they're looking at my evidence and the timestamp. So at 8:30 a.m., the entity is covering up the fake sun. I already have that evidence. And it's also impossible that the entity would have it over me on the same route, along the same line at a different position, which is what is the case at 8:30 a.m. where I'm at campus and Hope Boulevard. They are still crossing path in Impossible Light. The entity's been molesting me with Impossible Light way up the back of the bus, while the people of the state are crossing path on the roads and the highways. And this is the basis for, again, this employee, which is 4128 for federal prison. Okay, this is the government that you see stalking with commercial planes. That level of stalking and then covering up the fake sun is not under any circumstances evading the pattern of conduct. In fact, it's a threat to the life of American citizens, while the entities engaging in this state surveillance system and doing so with the disregard and with the nonchalant demeanor, which is not exhibiting innocence or ignorance. 9 Larry Wendy Bob 577 is also gang stalking. This is the population that's sharing in that. The documentation already shows that the people of the state are monitoring. The engineered light is speaking to what is conclusive evidence regarding a pattern of conduct, and also surveillance of the documentation. Employee 4128 is gang stalking while the entity has the fake sun. This is where it's at, and it's covered up. And the entity is engaging what is very demonic, and this is a demon operating the transit line, operating this bus. Same time at 8:30, and not only that, coming from Pomona, California, where the sun would not be over the sky space in Pomona. And don't forget about what I documented on April 4th, 2026 in Pomona, California, where I'm remaining at the Pomona Police Department. Again, the entity's just going by second, moment by moment, and forgetting about what is, and not even if they remembered, they cannot get out of what is the body of evidence that is decisive regarding clarity about what employee 4128 is engaging in. And this is the evidence regarding what is also federal prison when the entity is seeking to obstruct justice. This isn't the weather. This isn't the natural weather. The entity is engaging what is covering up the fake sun. And right before I began recording, before 8:30, that is, the entity that's looking at the video timestamps and everything that I documented, cover up the fake sun at 8:30. But the entity has the fake sun over the Fontana Metro train station from morning until evening. This is employee 4128 that's already surrounded with evidence. It's exhibiting the threat that she is while she's operating a public means of transportation with the population that's gang stalking together, this is the same circumstance where the entity commits murder. Just like the circumstance where an entity that's poisoning customers that buy its products, the entity commits murder. The entity that's engaging in what is surveillance by commercial planes, the entity commits murder. This is the P.O.C. The fake sun is indeed over this bus. License 9AGG004. They're all gang stalking. And failing at concealing the pattern of conduct, the city of Fontana is engaged in targeting me. Keeping a fake sun. This is Sierra Avenue. That's the fake sun right there. And this is, again, impossible to be over campus and Hope Boulevard at the same time, which is exactly what I'm documenting while I'm sitting on the passenger side of the bus. And the bus is on Hope Boulevard, and it's turning onto Campus Avenue at the intersection. So going east on Hope Boulevard, and then turning what is north onto campus at the same time. We're on Sierra Avenue right now, turning off of Marigold. This is P.O.C., all right? The employees, the people of the state, the entity itself will be prosecuted for all criminal acts of obstruction of justice. This is what they're doing in order to murder someone, and this is already too late. With Southwest, UPS, Delta Airlines, United Airlines, FedEx, all the entity that's gang stalking my commercial plane is already showing what employee number 4128 is engaging in. The documentation regarding the fake sun is showing how it is a statewide pattern of conduct. There are no exceptions, and there will never be any forgetfulness regarding the impossible light that's on any bus where employee 4128 is gang stalking me and threatening me, while the entity that is demon possessed is covering up a fake sun, keeping me under surveillance, which is psychologically harmful conduct. All right, she's a demon, and she's gang stalking me in furtherance of murder. This is P.O.C. And she's doing it with everybody that's getting on and off the bus, monitoring me and my device in doing so. And they're all demons under what is a light source that's remaining on this same street into the evening at the Fontana Metrolink train station. This is Sierra Avenue. So this is the same street where the fake sun is on this side of Sierra Avenue setting. Okay, that's P.O.C. It is currently 8:36 a.m. This is indeed the fake sun. That's over me in Ontario, California. Same bus route, Route 61, in the city of Ontario, coming from Pomona. Okay, that is conclusive evidence, not covering up the fake sun. There is no getting out of the P.O.C. And the P.O.C. is the totality of circumstances, such as stalking by helicopter and commercial plane. This is P.O.C. Alright, this is a demon, license 76141Y3, who is stalking me on the roads and the highways with the city of Fontana. And as he crosses path, the light is shooting like a laser onto me, while Impossible Light is also stationary on the floor on the inside of the bus. This demon they're stalking in the path under what is not the sun. You already are aware of where it is when I'm in Ontario. That's how you know that this is a stalker, and very specific, detailed methods of presence in the path. 4UGX210, stalking in the path. Agent surveillance, the fake sun reflecting off the windshield when it's in Ontario, California, along the same bus route, headed toward the destination that I'm already at right now, which is Sierra in Fontana, at the Fontana Metrolink train station, where I'm present after 5 p.m. And these demons are conclusively surrounded with evidence inspiring murder with the city of Fontana. They're stalking on the roads and the highways with employee 4128. That's P.O.C. The entire apartment community, as the fake sun moves over all their facilitating venues where they live, and they are stalking, surrounded with impossible light activity. And this is the prosecution of anybody that's operating a vehicle that you're on, threatening your life. There's no accidents. The entity that's engaging in this is monitoring you until they take your life. And this is the entity that's doing so with the government that's stalking me. As you know, Mike LORENZ by helicopter, and Alan D. WAPNER and the commercial airline companies by commercial planes, from city to city at that. Okay, this is P.O.C. These are the mentally ill. These are the demon-possessed who are in fact mentally ill, and it includes one that's operating the bus. Psychopathic, okay, very highly malicious. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 8:41 a.m. The entity that's engaged in that, the impossible light activity, is that which is speaking to what is covering up the fake sun. Okay, and that's evidence that's remaining, regardless of whether they cover that. This isn't the natural weather at all. And this is not sanity. These are people who are insane, psychotic. All right, and a very precise level of stalking, controlling the traffic lights, engaging what is demonic activity while they go in bathrooms, stalking and monitoring you, doing so in the most extreme and outrageous, the most expensive and costly ways, such as using the commercial airline companies, which is a vivid illustration as to the level of obsession that this entity that's already prosecuted has. So they're engaging in stalking when the demon-possessed population has been exposed, and the criminal system operated by the demon-possessed, which is the beast system, is exposed. And Omnitrans is fully engaged in the beast system. P.O.C. This is the fake sun turning as I turn. And I'm in Ontario, coming from Pomona yesterday. All right, it is currently 8:42 a.m. Omnitrans is going to be prosecuted, and their employees are going to be prosecuted for the ongoing harms which are incalculable, that which you cannot quantify, when you're being targeted by those that are operating dangerous machines like a bus and stalking with everybody getting on and off that bus, monitoring you with the government that is stalking you using things like planes and helicopters. That's a level of damages that has not been contemplated before, and it is also that which is speaking to the company altogether not existing. It's a threat to the public, okay, while they're threatening me and furtherance of murdering me. P.O.C. License 1597016. This is employee number 4128 that's engaging in and communicating a threat, both expressly and impliedly by virtue of the environment, and the stalking by the Fontana Police Department by helicopter under the fake sun in the middle of the afternoon, following me from the Fontana Lewis Library. Michael Dorsey is a demon, just like employee number 4128. Michael Dorsey and the Fontana Police Department are engaged in criminal summoning. They're violent sex offenders engaged in vagina monitoring, who are moreover hostile and engage in criminal activities such as gang stalking someone conspicuously as they are documented. Employee number 4128. She is operating bus number 1370397, and this is the basis to put her in particular in federal prison while I document the entity that's engaging in what is surveilling me and keeping my devices under surveillance. When you're stalking with the police and you call yourself engaging in retaliation by conspicuously stalking me with the police who are not even police, they're demons under a fake sun, engaging in criminal surveillance with a bunch of puppets. The entity engages in that by stalking you also by helicopter. You're going to prison. That's bus number 1326. This is under the fake sun. Remember, that's here in the middle of the afternoon. 8:46 a.m. is the time right now. And that's Michael Dorsey. That's not engaging in what is any sort of law enforcement. He's not remaining in position either. And the Fontana Police Department is also a threat to the public as well. And he is speaking to what is no coincidence under a fake sun that's remaining not only in the city of Fontana, which the natural environment would not include, but over me as I'm documenting the city of Fontana on a particular street, a main street which is Sierra Avenue, not exceeding what is Foothill Boulevard and what is Marigold when I'm on Route 61. This is where a fake sun is remaining, and that's where the evidence is going to show that this agency is targeting me, including when you're looking at what is Rialto, Colton, and Fontana police, a bunch of vagina monitors intimidated by me, and the fact that they know that they are going to prison. That demon's going to prison, and so is employee number 4128. And this is how you're disincentivizing domestic terrorists. Psychopaths that can't use their words, they engage in stalking you in things like helicopters and police vehicles, engaging in what is passive-aggressive, microaggressive conduct as they're conspiring your murder. You're going to prison for that. It's an act of terrorism and it's an act of war. This is an entity that's using psychological torture tactics against American citizens who are not equipped to deal with that. That is the entity that's doing so. And Fontana police are also keeping my vagina under surveillance in the bathroom on behalf of demons like employee number 4128. Stalking with impossible light, stalking under a fake sun that remains over the library. This is P.O.C. The Fontana police that don't have anything to do, that are engaging in what is using SWAT vehicles, those 3 police departments that are engaging in what is stalking me on this same street in the middle of the afternoon, daylight savings time or not. They're all being federally prosecuted and identified as terrorists. While the entity likes to waste gas and use helicopters to keep me under surveillance because of how vital and key I am to letting you know about what the reality is in the United States. And that's why. And it's also because they are demons who are fearful. And when Satan is fearful, you see him make very stupid and what is costly mistakes, errors. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is from the city of Ontario to the city of Fontana. I'm still en route to Ontario yesterday where employee 4128 is surrounded with evidence with regard to targeting me with the Fontana Police Department with Michael Dorsey, who bears weapons and badges and uses things like helicopters and vehicles issued to the department to gang stalk me in furtherance of murdering me. This is P.O.C. It is currently, and everybody here is threatening as well. Everybody here is threatening. This is an ongoing threatening environment and a threatening pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. It is currently 8:48 a.m. That's Omnitrans that's engaging in that. This is civil and criminal court. This is the totality of circumstances. But employee 4128, I document you, and the entity stalks me by any sort of agency. After you're going to prison. That's your prize. Prison time. P.O.C. All right, it is still Wednesday, April 22nd, 2026. The current time is 10:21 a.m. And before I publish the podcast, I just want to bring to your attention another vivid illustration of an entity that is stalking.
And the entity is, in other words, stalking. The literal definition of stalking is to follow from place to place, and surveillance is maintaining that ongoing stalking conduct everywhere and at all times. And doing so outside of the bounds of the law is criminal. And it's also criminal for the government to engage in that. And the government is not only engaging in that, which is criminal, the government's engaging in that, which is criminal with the population, which is public corruption, where the U.S. is engaged in criminal surveillance in concert with the constituents of the state, the people of the state. Now, what you're going to look at is at 10 a.m., I'm at the Fontana Lewis Library, 8437 Sierra Avenue in Fontana, California, where I'm documenting the fake sun that is present as I exit, and Fontana Police Department are stalking, literal by definition, as we all have the rudimentary principles in hand regarding the environment, the natural environment that NASA will never be able to reconcile with my documentation. NASA represents the entity, just so that you know that. But the entity is, for example, what moon are they flying to? When I'm showing you the fake moon that's remaining over me, exiting Fontana Lewis Library at night, aboard Omnitrans to the Ontario Town Square. And the body of my evidence shows that it's wherever it is that I sleep at night. It's the fake moon over the Ontario Museum of History and Arts, where also during the day, the fake sun. This is what is relevant regarding these mind-blowing historic leaps in progress regarding mankind that went to the moon. And I'm documenting these light sources in my immediate sky space. They're not even high up above, they're hovering, and they move as I move like a plane. It's a moon-shaped plane and a sun-shaped plane. That's how the environment is behaving. And in that environment, everybody is stalking, and the stalking conduct is in the reverse. So, and by that I mean, first of all, stalking is typically traditionally defined as one person, typically. I mean, I guess you could say someone and their friend, but typically when you're in court and you hear somebody talking about you have a stalker, you're talking about one person, and you know who they are. Even if it's a stranger, you become acquainted with that stranger while they're stalking you, and you document them. I have a stalker. Their name is, Tommy. It's in reverse because the targeted individual is the one person that's being stalked by a population. And it's also that population at any and all places, whether inside of an establishment, which is a venue, whether it's a place of residence, or whether it's a place of commercial business, whether it's categorized as one that's being abandoned, whether it's public property. All of that's irrelevant with regard to the pattern of conduct and surveillance. That's serving the system, this corrupt system regarding the illusion, presenting what is a constitution that's governing everything that the government governing everything that, first of all, we are protected by, and that the government has our consent to engage in for our protection, for our benefit, right? And we are supposed to be distinct from the rest of the world. In fact, a free world leader. Okay, this is all serving an illusion. That illusion, very, very important to maintain the appearance of that illusion. But the entity is maintaining what is an environment, as I show you, sun-shaped planes, because that's exactly how the fake sun behaves, like it's a plane flying outside of the windows of the Omnitrans bus. It's just the shape of the sun, because it's literally moving as I move, and it doesn't move as I remain at one venue. In fact, it just goes from the east side of the same address to, the rising in the east and setting in the west ism that we've heard. It is rising on the east side of said venue and setting on the west side of said venue over me, wherever I'm located at the venue, where I do not ever leave that venue. That's identifying stalking by a population. And the crime scene is identified where that specific environment, which is supernatural, it's demonic. And it exceeds what is any reasonable contention that the government is ignorant about it, and that the government is just ignorantly engaging in what is, at the very least, could be described as harassing me in that environment. Okay? This is the P.O.C. And so the entities engaging in what is in the reverse, stalking as a population, one person. When traditional stalking is understood to be typically one person, or maybe, it could be something where you've heard, a couple of people pursuing. But the fact of an entity. Gang stalking, group stalking, it's state organized stalking, and stalking is pursuant to what is surveillance stalking. That's happening 24 hours a day at all times and at all places where there are no exceptions. There's no exceptions to the rule, and the P.O.C. shows how that is the case. There's absolutely no exception. Entirely the environment is showing how it is specifically designed, maintaining a whole illusion regarding what's going on and what everyone in that environment is engaged in and actually focused on. You're right, they're not engaged in doing their job as a vendor at the grocery store. They're engaged in activity creation where surveillance is underway, while they maintain businesses as the guise, and putting it in terms of what is witchcraft, what the government is practicing. Satanism, okay, the cult culture that are the demon-possessed, engaging in what is this beast system. It's demonic. They're cloaking themselves as businesses and employees of businesses, and all they're really doing is engaging in mentally ill behavior, pacing around under a fake sun and at nightfall under a fake moon, under both circumstances and engineered light, which is relevant to a satanic ritual where the demon-possessed are monitoring everyone everywhere. They're monitoring each other, and they're monitoring those that are ignorant to it, like I formerly was and like you formerly were. And you are even able to identify and be certain about the truth that I'm telling you while you are in any other state in this country, literally in any other location outside of where I'm at. Because even in California, these are all demons here, but even in California, in Sacramento, in San Francisco, in San Diego, where I have documented the pattern of conduct in San Diego, there's no sun that's going to be in any sky space other than over the Fontana Lewis Library, where it is at 10 a.m. and where I am facing the direction. I believe I'm facing at Sierra and Arrow. I believe Sierra Avenue runs north and south, and Arrow runs east and west. And so while I am at the Fontana Lewis Library and I'm facing east, the sun is not west of my person. It's not west of my person in Pomona, and everyone can clearly see that. In fact, it's so asinine. The sun isn't even high in the sky. It's hovering over the building. And it's amazing, especially with our rudimentary understanding of science and the natural environment, because we don't have to be rocket scientists. And as NASA shows, rocket scientists are serving to perpetuate an illusion. An illusion which is highly unintelligent, which directly rebuts this whole notion of being a genius when you're a rocket scientist. But I'll digress. The entity is engaging in what is having a fake sun hovering over the building, and it's not setting on fire. And as I walk out at closing, like I'm documenting on Friday, the fake sun is still over the same library, where I am also subject to a pattern of conduct, the behavioral health issues concerning those that are in that environment around me, that are sharing an impossible pattern of conduct. But that which is supernatural, that which is impossible, is a matter of documentation, proving it. At 10 a.m., I am at what is the El Super grocery store, and that is in Fontana, California, and that is following my return from Pomona, California. And I am approximately an hour and a half ahead of schedule, which is what I demonstrated. Employee number 4128 aboard Route 61 is operating that coach, and the fake sun is over me at the Fontana Metrolink train station, and an hour and a half behind, which is 8:30 a.m. versus 10 a.m., right? So at 10 a.m. today, this is what I mean. At 10 a.m. today, I am at the Fontana Lewis Library. At 10 a.m. yesterday, after I am not arriving yet at the Fontana Lewis Library, and where I'm at what is Hope Boulevard and Campus. And I'm reminding you about, while I'm in Fontana at 8:30 today, I'm in Ontario on the same route, headed to the same location, but I'm not there yet. But at the same time, I'm showing you in Fontana and in Ontario, aboard even the same bus, headed in the same direction, going the same route, but I'm at different locations on that route, and I'm coming from Pomona, moreover. And you're looking at that same pattern of conduct and the impossibility that the sun would be over the intersection of Sierra and Orange Way, while it's over me at Hope Boulevard and Campus in two different cities at the same time. When I am on Sierra Avenue and the bus is driving north on Sierra Avenue, turning off of Marigold, and I am in Ontario, California, and the bus is driving east on Hope Boulevard and then turning north onto campus at the same time. And the fake sun is on video over me on that means of public transportation. This is the entity that's engaging in what is targeting, and that's very clear targeting. And the sun that is outside of the window in Ontario is not over anyone in Fontana. It's hovering over the intersection. It's hovering over the window, the bus that I'm on. It's hovering over the Fontana Lewis Library. It is not west of my person in Ontario. I'm facing one direction. The sun is not the sky. It's not omnipotent. It's not some ubiquitous presence. Literally, by definition, the sun that's in constant movement, that's the direct opposite of one that is ubiquitous, meaning everywhere, all the time, at all places. And you also know that because the sun sets, it's not ubiquitous, it's not present at all time. That's why we have nightfall. This is, again, antithetical to the natural environment, and I'm documenting it. Something that NASA cannot reconcile. Okay? But the entity is engaging in this pattern of conduct. And while I am at 10 o'clock in the morning here at the Fontana Lewis Library at 8437 Sierra Avenue, mindful of all the evidence that I have of the fake sun remaining here until the evening, but I'm here nonetheless at 10 a.m. in the morning today, and I'm taking a picture of the Fontana Lewis Library. Fake sun right there over me and everybody that's around me. Okay? And at 10 a.m. in the morning yesterday, after getting off of Route 61, the same route, getting off at Marigold, which intersects with Sierra Avenue, I am at the entrance of the El Super grocery store, located at 9850 Sierra Avenue in Fontana, California. And the entity has the fake sun at 10 o'clock in the morning over me, same presence over me, over the top of my head, hovering, and doing so while I'm at two different locations, even within the same city. And while, like I stated, the entity is keeping the fake sun while I am facing the direction east at the Fontana Lewis Library, my back to the entrance doors, it is not west of me, which is where it would have to be over the entrance doors as I'm facing the parking lot outside of the El Super at the same time at 10 o'clock in the morning yesterday, which is where I was, where the fake sun was as well. And that's what I want you to be mindful of. This is relevant to the bigger picture because this is the ongoing contradiction regarding what I'm documenting as you're getting to the bigger picture. The police that are stalking, maintaining surveillance in that environment. The police that are exposed as mentally ill, using their sirens and lights and being present in that environment pursuant to targeting one person, the same person that has exposed that scientific enigma. This is an entity that's engaging in that. Relevant to the entity that's not just engaged in what is stalking, the police have gone to the extent to even put hands on me and kidnap me, claiming that they have a basis under the law when they are also targeting. Have gone to the extent to criminally defame my character. And criminal defamation had to be created in order to understand the totality of circumstances. This is no ordinary tortious act. It's in furtherance of those same police departments seeking to commit murder and theft and kidnapping. That's what's relevant regarding the fake sun documentation, and covering it up shall be a basis for prison. This is the entity that is engaged in what is satanic, and what the entity has learned itself, which it is exceedingly hostile to and delusional regarding, is that they have never been magical. It's a ritual. Their ritual, which is supposed to deliver results. The entity is engaged in what is pacing. The objective is to repeatedly cross my path. The entity does this on the roads and the highways. The entity does this by aerial surveillance. The entity does this by the people of the state. The entity does this by the maintenance of establishments, stores, businesses, homes. While you are crossing path, you are inside of those buildings. Whether you live there or whether they're outside, you are maintaining presence all the way around. I mean, literally all the way around. They're in the sky space crossing path. They are on the ground all around you crossing path, whether you see them or not, inside of the buildings, outside. The entity is never ceasing to engage in relevant positioning, and they're doing so in that environment that you're mindful of, that you're aware of, that you're cognizant of. Because this is key regarding what is to the demon-possessed who are mentally ill, who formerly thought that they were magicians. they think that they're magical, and that their ritual, because that's what this is, their rituals regarding incessant crossing of path in the engineered light, where they are extracting information knowledgeable about what's going on your devices. This is what makes them think that they're magical, because this is how they are keeping you under surveillance, and they're doing it pursuant to knowledge about who you are and what you're doing, including the most private, intimate details concerning your genitalia. This is the entity that's engaging in that supernatural knowledge is because they are demon possessed, because they're spirits. Spirits, you cannot see spirits, okay? But the behavior of the entity is letting you know what their condition is. The environment and the behavior of those that are in that environment is letting you know what their condition is. I am in the specific environment as well. I am not pacing around anybody. It's not just presence. It's not just the environment, but it's the entity that is acting in conformity and unreasonably contending that you're coincidentally stalking me with light. You're coincidentally engaging in that psychopathic pacing. You're coincidentally just in the environment while the entity is stalking by planes. And they're doing that on every occasion that I'm, for example, at the Ontario Village Shopping Center, while where you work is filled with engineer light, and you are not being targeted. You are targeting a specific person. And the identification of the entity versus the targeted individual is also very clear. They tend to be the person that is maintaining documentation. Okay, the entity is engaging in a very clear pattern of conduct, and the pattern of conduct is supposed to be the demon-possessed Satan that has lied to his followers, making them feel as though they are witches and warlocks with supernatural levels of power, and they're magicians that no one can contend with. No one can even identify them. No one knows what they're doing. This gives them a sense of power. This is actually mental illness, psychopathic and delusional in nature. And I represent what is the entity that is being exposed even to itself as being nothing other than mentally ill, not magical. When you're engaging in what is the incessant crossing of path, you're engaging in anxious, mentally ill, disturbing behavior as you're being analyzed as a person in the environment. That is moreover stalking. And it is very clear to be proven as stalking where a fake sun is remaining over someone, to even come up with the notion of a fake sun, which is not the burden of an American citizen that's being targeted. That is the onus of the entity that's stalking you in that environment, which is also very clearly delineated. They are the mentally ill who engage in what are rituals that they are witnessing are unsuccessful, fruitless, clearly exhibiting and exposing severe and closeted mental illness in the most unsuspecting environments, such as in the quiet corners of the Fontana Lewis Library, where they're pacing. Right? Not so quiet when Michael Dorsey sends a helicopter over it, though. That's when you're looking at what is the reality of everyone in that environment that is not ignorantly sharing in that pattern of conduct under that fake sun that's simultaneously over the El Super at 10 o'clock, while I'm facing, my back is to the entrance door. Well, that would be the exit doors of the El Super at 10 o'clock. That location toward what is the Fontana Lewis Library is one that would be southwest of my location, which is impossible. I'm clearly facing east. The sun is not behind me at the same time. This is the entity that's engaging in what is, remember the light activity that's inside of this Fontana Lewis Library. You're not ignorantly in that environment. While you're engaging in what is the behavioral pattern, the behavior which is on its surface supposed to appear normal. Nothing is normal in the engineered light. And it's all state action. Moreover, it will be and it shall be a strict liability basis. The entity that is targeting American citizens shall have already created a paper trail, meaning American citizens that are being abused, American citizens that are being kidnapped, American citizens that are being falsely accused, American citizens that are subject to what is harassment, including by the police. The targeted individual is very clearly distinct from the rest of the people of the state who are gang stalking. And it is under all circumstances proving the reality of a criminal surveillance system. The lesson that the demon-possessed are learning is that they are not magical, and they never were. They're mentally ill. And they have been deceived by Satan. And what is the bigger message? Those of you who are witnessing how Satan is defeated, this is not new. Christ defeated him on the cross. Moreover, Satan also knows what he's not permitted to commit. He is deceiving those who are failing, being defeated in front of you, for you to learn the lesson that they refuse to accept. Refusing to accept the reality is not changing the consequences. In fact, it's exacerbating them. Satan knows very well what he's not able to engage in, what he doesn't have permission to do. But it's Satan's job to deceive and drag as many to hell with him as possible. That's what's gang stalking me. It's 10:42 a.m. The images of the fake sun that's over the El Super and the Fontana Lewis Library are captured for you. It's in the Google Drive. You'll see it at 10 o'clock in the morning. All the evidence is published for yesterday, April 21st, 2026, and everything is published thus far for today, April 22nd. I did capture screenshots today showing you half of the screen of what is yesterday and today, which I also like to do so that you could see it at the same time, just like when I do screen recordings, you could see it at the same time. Okay, this is just for your learning, just for your experience, for you to see that which is impossible. All right, it's literally happening, and that's relevant to criminal defamation. The demon-possessed are nothing other than liars. They're nothing other than murderers and violent sex offenders engaging in rituals surrounding my vagina. That's what they're doing. The entity is engaging in what is rituals using helicopters surrounding my vagina. They're nothing other than sex offenders where Satan has made them think that they are magical, and they're not. Do not be deceived. This is P.O.C. All right, this is an entity that's engaged in surveillance in the bathroom. He's in engineer light right now. The fake sun is over the venue, and the entity is maintaining amplified noise in the bathroom. This is crossing path, knowledge of where I'm at. This is a psychopath that's intentionally looking away too. She's a homosexual, actually monitoring a woman's vagina. But the entity is engaged in this, and this is on behalf of same police that you see stalking outside, the same police that you've seen flying in circles over the library. Doing so while they're keeping my vagina inside of the bathroom under surveillance. The reality is that toilets flushing in either of these bathrooms is not going to cause impact through the walls. This is what an entity is doing, surrounding me with noise in the engineered environment in the building under the fake sun while they engage in surveillance in the bathroom. And this is conspicuous surveillance pursuant to my genitalia, which he's challenged by use of the device on behalf of Michael Dorsey. Michael Dorsey that's stalking by helicopter over the library. And this is the entity that's engaged in psychological torture and an unlawful threat while they're gang stalking you in your face. You're looking at the stalker while you're going to disrobe in the bathroom with knowledge that they're keeping your genitalia under surveillance. This is a psychopath. Okay, this is P.O.C. and they're all engaging that together. Now, after 5 p.m., and they do it, you see the kids, they're gang stalking, and they're literally monitoring vagina. The entity is engaged in that P.O.C. together, but this is the entity that's doing so while they're pacing in the hallway, pacing together, pacing on Sierra Avenue, the same Sierra and Spring Avenue where the fake sun's over, as I'm documenting, at 8:30 in the morning. And this is, again, crossing in the path, blocking the path, making sure that you don't get to the bathroom without somebody being in the path, doing so by coming up and down the stairs, doing so coming off the elevator, walking in the hallway. And stalking is committed by being in front of you, going into the male restroom where they're engaging in what is surveillance. Just being there present. All right, that's P.O.C. This is mental illness. Alrighty, and you are actually going to deport them out of the country. And Mr. Trump is not incorrect calling immigrants sex offenders, calling them those that are criminals, that are a threat to the public. Regardless of what he is inspired by, it's a fact in California, and that is categorical. Okay, they're engaging in the criminal elements of monitoring. This is the same library where you saw the engineer light all over the wall, and everybody's looking like they're all studying. These are psychopaths and vagina monitors. It's P.O.C. All right, it's currently 12:42 p.m. This is Lisa Hazen. Okay. This is stalking in the path while they're talking to each other. They're gang stalking me. Remember the light that's flying all around the desk? This is P.O.C. Stalking in the path. Okay, this is the pattern of conduct. And these are the mentally ill. And remember the light activity on the bus while I'm here, and the entity's gang stalking. So this is what it looks like and behaves like while it's engaged in surveillance all day long, and it are a bunch of demons. P.O.C. That's vagina monitoring, 12:42 p.m. This is Lisa Hazen. That's a so-called manager. This is San Bernardino County. And Lisa Hazen is a female that's engaged in what is sexually violating and facilitating sexual violence of another woman in a library that has this light activity, which is impossible light activity, speaking to surveillance. Okay, surveillance that is underway by everybody, and standing in my path is an unlawful threat. Keeping my genitalia under surveillance, harassing with amplified noise in the bathroom while you're tracking my steps and monitoring me in that private space. All right, it is very much important to know that Lisa Hazen is engaged in this pattern of conduct. This is P.O.C. Alrighty, it is currently 6:05 p.m. And this is the entity that's inside engaging what is stalking. And the stalking is not proven through the psychopathic ignoring conduct. It's the illusion of strangers that surround you. The stalking is proven through this light that's tracing along the ceiling. This is also how you know that they are demons, and they're engaging in stalking as an entity on behalf of those that are right across the water fountain outside, which is the gang stalkers of Fontana Police Department. All right, well, you're looking at what is the evidence of that's supposed to be sunlight, right? All right, well, we saw Fontana Police under the fake sun this morning before 10 o'clock. In fact, it was 9 o'clock in the morning, and this would never be present regardless of what time the entity has a fake sun. This is present for the gang stalking purposes of the people of the state. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. They engaged in ongoing harassment, monitoring what I'm publishing on the internet. Their brethren, the ones that they're going to be federally prosecuted with, the Ontario Police Department. And that's also how you know that it's one entity aside from what the P.O.C. provides you, hard evidence of it, because I'm being terrorized and psychologically tortured and harassed by a bunch of demons that are gang stalking, engaging in federal stalking on communication devices, monitoring my device on the internet. I'm being harassed in a supernatural manner at the same time that I'm using the device, publishing evidence that it is very much interested in, and that's why they're engaging what is harassing me. Looking to the left and the right and holding your phone is going to be the evidence to have them committed. All right, serial stalkers are subject to prison, and they're all engaged in vagina monitoring. This is where Lisa Hazen is engaging in what is, as a manager, facilitating a venue where terrorism is underway in furtherance of murdering a patron, which is what I represent. This is where Stephanie Ortiz engaged in criminal summoning with the entity. This is a Fontana Lewis Library, and this, by virtue of looking, is an unlawful threat. Okay, this is the entity that's engaging in what is targeting while a bunch of stalkers sit around. This is surveillance. It is P.O.C. It's Fontana Lewis Library. It is currently 6:07 p.m. This is P.O.C. And this is where Fontana police are stalking by helicopter. This is where it's amplified in volume right here. And this is where the entity is stalking by the librarians. And this is a tactic of gang stalking in the bathroom, hostility and harassment by this, because I'm documenting them. And this is also where Fontana Police, that's Michael Dorsey, is targeting me right here where helicopter activity sounds, where I'm speaking to a librarian who's telling me, oh, it's blocked because they're cleaning. And every other moment they're monitoring my vagina by going in there cleaning while the library is still open. And the males that are not documenting vagina monitoring are going into the bathroom gang stalking. Okay, this is the pattern of conduct, and this is where Michael Dorsey is engaging what is an iteration of harassment and wanting me to go downstairs in order to engage in what is using the bathroom while they're narrowing down the bathrooms that I have access to. This is P.O.C. and this is specific to what is the engineer light that's on the staircase. So this is not light activity, that's and neither is all the light that you saw all over. All right, the gang stalking vagina monitor is called AGS. Are monitoring, and those are again the so-called janitors, all right, engaging in that pattern of conduct and repeating that harassment in the engineered environment. And I'm going to prosecute what is San Bernardino County, who's a sex offender, and the manager is Lisa Hazen. All right, this is P.O.C. Michael Dorsey's keeping the surveillance underway inside of the bathrooms inside of the Fontana Lewis Library. This is my shadow on the wall over here, and my shadows on the floor here. These are sex offenders, limiting access to the bathrooms while they're still maintaining relevant positioning. Okay, that's P.O.C. That is indeed P.O.C. Okay, it's currently 8:50 a.m. where the entity is stalking by helicopter while you're stalking in the bathroom. And this is, again, demons like Lisa Hazen are going to be prosecuted for it. P.O.C. I guess it doesn't open though.
Alrighty, it is currently, I'm walking out of the entrance doors. This is the entity that's stalking by helicopter. It's impossible audible activity that I would hear helicopter in Fontana Lewis Library. So the entity, it's the same thing with regard to well, not quite the same thing, but it is the same pattern of conduct, because a helicopter over the enormous and intricate structure of the Fontana Lewis Library is not exactly the same thing, but it is equally impossible audible activity, because when you're flushing the toilet, it's not creating like earthquake booming noise. You're not going to hear it, in other words, in both of the bathrooms, while the entity is maintaining a method of audible activity while they're monitoring you. And the entity is monitoring you while you're nude, while it's also molesting your nude body and engineer light. And while the entity is in that state, monitoring you with noise and light, they are specifically in that moment seeking to be around you, and doing so under the guise of a population that's going into the male and female restrooms. And they're all stalking you, they're all targeting you, and they're also sharing corporate knowledge about you in that nude state, engaging in activity in a stall, exceedingly violent and inhumane means of surveillance. Okay, so that's no ordinary violation of privacy, and that's what Michael Dorsey is engaged in. The entity is now engaged in criminal summoning. I'm going to document the license plates that are parked on the outside of the parking garage, operating their communication devices, monitoring my vagina, while the entity sounded helicopter activity, which you're not going to hear unless Michael Dorsey is, and that's by admission, because you're going to prosecute them for their demonic behaviors, and it's relevant to them being subject to commitments, because the entity is engaged in what is hovering on the top, like you have a helipad on top of the Fontana Lewis Library, or you're a demon and you're amplifying helicopter activity inside of the Fontana Lewis Library, exactly where I'm located, on video with my shadow that's spread across that staircase. This is vagina monitoring. This is P.O.C. My multiple shadows. And they are stalking. All right, and this is what they're doing while they're engaged in what is stalking by helicopter. And this is an entity that's acting with the state, that's pacing around with sirens sounding, waiting for me to walk outside of the Fontana Lewis Library in order to do so in the engineered environment where the fake sun remains from beginning of the day until the end of the day. This is a basis of federal prison, and this is the demon that knows that I'm there. She's staying fixed on her communication device as though that is not the case, and it is not disproving the pattern of conduct. It is irrelevant to the malicious and psychopathic behavioral issues concerning the people. 9 George Barry David 541, and she's also engaged in surveillance as the entity that is stalking under the fake moon. Okay, this is indeed a mentally ill person who is very malicious, and this is Michael Dorsey, Aquanetta Warren. You're talking about the San Bernardino County fire, the demons that are doing nothing other than driving around in circles, pacing around the perimeter with light activity and sirens for sex offenders like this to block the bathroom door, limiting access to the bathroom so that they can keep particular toilets under surveillance as less of the demons have left the library, nonetheless not engaging in any less of the pattern of conduct. 6S CJ 673. This is the entity stalking in the sky space. There's no airport in Fontana. This is the same pattern of conduct underway in Ontario. While the entity is under the fake moon, that's not over the Ontario Town Square. It's over the Fontana Lewis Library, and where the entity is stalking with helicopter while I'm inside of the venue. This is Michael Dorsey, who is clearly exposing the fact that he is an enemy that has been waiting to be exposed, but this is a matter of evidence that's been on the record for years. Okay, and terrorist leaders are going to be removed. You're not staying in law enforcement. You're also not getting a final paycheck. This is an entity that's going to be subject to prosecution. You're going to be prosecuted like any other foreign terrorist that's not welcome and will not be given any benefits. All right, license 9SMS 852. This is P.O.C. All right, the janitors inside of the venue are engaged in surveillance on behalf of the government, and they're doing so while they're engaging in the perpetual sex offense, and this is referred to as criminal summoning by the city of Fontana. Okay, this is P.O.C. This is where the demon engaged in what is molesting me with impossible light, and then you'll pay attention to the facial expressions of psychopaths looking so appalled and surprised by my presence when you are stalking as the fake sun is over this venue, moving over me as it's moving, just like the fake moon is. Okay, and you're engaged in what is waiting until I'm there so you can commit a sex offense for the state that's maintaining aerial surveillance. All right, this is ongoing chaos and terrorism that Aquanetta Warren's being removed from office for. Okay, you're literally going to replay this body of evidence that's going to prosecute her as a gang stalker, a terrorist in Fontana, because she is not staying in office. Her name is Aquanetta Warren, and the Fontana City Council are engaged in criminal surveillance and furtherance of targeting American citizens, murdering them, and do the same entity is Ontario Police. They are one entity. It is the same as Pomona Police, like I stated. It is not different, and the demons of Fontana Police are pacing right here behind the city bank. They've dipped below the roof of the bank, and they're going back and forth. All right, they're stalking. So is the people of the state. That demon that's in her vehicle, she's engaging what is surveillance. That's P.O.C, and that's surveillance that's underway in the bathroom. So here's my shot of in front of me. This is the entity that's engaging. Michael Dorsey is a sex offender. Okay, he is a sex offender, he is a pervert, and he's severely mentally ill. And this is the ability to identify this in this supernatural environment. This has nothing to do with the light that I'm standing under. Okay, lights that are standing under, these lights are not projecting your shadow in front of you and also behind you, right? And on the floor. That's not created by this light activity. Those are demons stalking in the bathroom, demons stalking in the parking lot, monitoring on devices, psychopaths pacing all around me, obsessed with my vagina, and also hostile and aggressive because they are demons who are being exposed, sharing in the same criminal conduct that's putting Mike Lorenz and every other terrorist like Michael Dorsey where they belong, which is in prison. That's where they belong. This is what Fontana Police is doing in order to murder somebody and psychologically torture them. And Michael Dorsey is doing it with a particular documented level of impunity, revealing what is a terrorist, an enemy in the United States. This is stalking with light. Demonic behavior. That's both diagnosing mental illness and prosecuting for terrorism. This is what's stalking in the bathroom. This is Fontana Lewis Library, and the relevant context is that the entity is engaged in the same thing while the fake sun is documented from morning until night. This is P.O.C. This is an entity that's engaging in what is, again, I want you to pay attention because these are the details you're paying attention to. This is impossible light. See the frame of the tree? That's how powerful that light is, not headlights. And it wasn't there a second ago. Very demonic. That was a demon in the vehicle that I showed you. That Latina female is a demon. And she's moving her vehicle because she's very much aware of my presence. Psychopath. Very much a psychopath. Okay, psychopaths keeping my vagina under surveillance. It's now Lisa Hazen is to Fontana Lewis Library as Sean Thrasher is at the Ovid Family Community Library. You know where Sean Thrasher's going? He's going to prison. He's going to prison as surely as Michael Dorsey is helping put him there. And vice versa. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:01 p.m. and that's relevant to the ongoing terrorism that they've been engaged in all day long inside of the library. This is P.O.C. stalking with light inside of the Fontana Lewis Library. It's because Fontana Lewis Library, San Bernardino County, is the government's engagement in the P.O.C. with the terrorists, the stalkers who are the people of the state. Everybody, all those demons, all those psychopaths, all those stalkers sitting there staring at computers while they're stalking me. All right, that's P.O.C. It is currently, like I stated, 9:02 p.m. Alrighty, 9:02 p.m. The entity starts sounding helicopter on cue, aware that I just stopped recording. So I'm going to start recording to give you evidence that Michael Dorsey is keeping my devices under surveillance, no warrant or probable cause in the specific environment, and must have motion lights because the lights get brighter as I walk by them. This is criminal monitoring. This is P.O.C. License plate. Let's see, 155-9320. Flying right over the edge while the fake one moves over me. That's Michael Dorsey. All right, his resignation. He's not staying in office. No sex offender is any chief of police. All right, and he's very upset because I came to Fontana to remove him from position. Because I came to Fontana to make sure that you know that Aquanetta Warren is not only ghetto, but she's being removed from office because she's a thug just like Michael Dorsey. Do not be deceived by the color of their skin. They're both demons and they're both gang members. Okay, just because she's called Aquanetta, Michael Dorsey is just as much of a thug, okay? They're engaging in what is stalking, and they're doing so because they're very fearful of what it is that I'm doing. They just engaged in what is very serious criminal activity in the United States, stalking me and flying over, targeting me with a helicopter. You're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. Okay, and I did come to Fontana, and I continuously come to Fontana because not only are the demons of Ontario going to prison, not only are demons in Los Angeles going to prison, not only are demons in Upland, California going to prison, but the demons in Fontana, California that just went particular to the side of the building. As I walked close to that building, you saw how that's very clear targeting by the entity. And you're paying attention to how the lights are going off. That's light activity. The entity's doing so while I have multiple shadows on the ground. The entity's doing so while the fake moon is moving as I move. No longer over the fat-faced demon in the parking lot who's stalking with light on behalf of the agency that's stalking in helicopters, and they're the ones that commit kidnappings and murders. All right, they're the ones that claim that they're investigating murders. There's no investigations amongst these demons that engage in murder as an entity. There's no investigation. Michael Dorsey is a stalker. That's why they're stalking and targeting me. No coincidence when I'm in Fontana. And you clearly must know who I am. And who I am bothers you. You're triggered by it because you are exactly what I'm telling everyone that you are, what you show everybody that you are, and what you are ripe for federal prison, okay? Michael Dorsey and the demons that will produce their identity while they're using the helicopters, using the heliport, using all the operations of the Fontana Police Department, they're going to produce it because they're going to prison. Okay? One after another. Gang stalking is that which includes a whole committee of stalkers. So everybody, every night that climbs in a helicopter stalking an American citizen, you're going to prison for it. Don't go around talking about you love your family and your kids. No, you don't, because the moment you crawl into that helicopter and start stalking, you're going to prison. You're getting locked up. Just like any other foreign terrorist, by the way, who's engaging in terrorism against American citizens, homegrown terrorists that are doing so using helicopters and then trying to double as a police department or a police officer are going to prison. They are the highest threat, okay? Because they're here amongst us and they want to be mistaken for otherwise. That demon engaged in what is on video flying back and forth, and the moment that I end that video at 9:02 immediately came toward me. How often is Mike LORENZ exhibiting the same real-time knowledge? And it's also very foolish because I get it all on video. All of it, every single last second of it. And the federal courts are going to do exactly what I said. Okay, this old white man, another white man bites the dust. He's going to prison. Okay, they live their lives one way, and I'm showing you what they actually are. And being a thug, being a criminal, being an evil person, it's not based on your zip code. It's not based on your race. It's not based on your employment history. It's not based on your income. It is based on your character and what you're doing. And that's why I'm prosecuting Michael Dorsey with the bare bones conduct of the members of the Fontana Police Department who are psychopaths. They're demon possessed. They're mentally ill. And so are all a population of demons. They're all demons. They're all critters. They're all roaches. And they can't control themselves. They're so foolish and they get triggered as I expose the truth about them, and they give me more and more evidence. And this is federal prison for terrorist leaders. Terrorist leaders like Mike LORENZ, Marcelo Blanco, Darren Goodman, Derek Williams, Michael Dorsey, they're going to prison. Jason Reed, Montclair, you're going to prison. You're going to federal prison. Those are terrorist leaders. And then you're talking about what is the entity that's going to federal prison, the ones that are literally crawling in the helicopter and stalking me every day and night. However often you're doing it, you document it because the response is prison. And the demons, the idiots that are sitting around pacing around, you get their license plate because they're going to prison. They could be doing it to you while you're in your home and you're living with your mom and your sister and your brother. They're gang stalking you and they're going to prison. This is how you're being targeted. This is the P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 9:07 p.m., where they were so triggered, they went on ahead and risked their liberty because that's how angry and enraged they are. That's how truthful and potent my evidence is as I publish it on the internet. All right, there's nothing mentally ill about me. They're so triggered while they sit up and watch me like a movie flick, and they cannot get enough of it. And the truth that I speak is why you then crawl in a helicopter, wait to monitor my vagina, and are sitting outside waiting to fly over the top of my head, because that's the most violent thing that you can conjure up in your mind. And because of that, you're going to prison, where you can get regular mental examinations. License 9 Edward David Mary 415 is gang stalking. License 6 Zebra George Robert 198 is gang stalking. And this is relevant to what Stephanie Ortiz is doing in April of 2022, when she engaged in criminal summoning with these gang members of the Fontana Police Department. I said then to her face that she's going to prison, and you're listening and watching the fact that she's going to prison. I don't care if she moved to Timbuktu. The long arm of the federal law knows exactly where you're at, and you're going to prison, Stephanie. Thank your buddy, Mr. Dorsey, because you're going to prison. All of you geniuses that are working against each other, where federal group stalking and monitoring is no secret. You're going to prison, honey. P.O.C. Okay, that confirms exactly what it is that I am always doing, testifying to the real-time criminal engagement in a pattern of conduct. Surveillance stalking, and it is Michael Dorsey in Fontana that's stalking. It's Aquanetta Warren in Fontana that's stalking. It's literally Lisa Hazen, all right, the branch manager, and everything occurring under her watch at the Fontana Lewis Library, which is the city of Fontana. And that is representing what is the entity. Everyone at all places and at all times are engaging in criminal surveillance. And this is the entity that's engaging in surveillance, which is a violent sex offender, which is informing you that your genitalia is under surveillance. That's the level of non-privacy that you have. Okay, those that are in law enforcement are not police officers. They are not engaged in law enforcement. They're engaged in surveillance, and they're sex offenders. That's why they have not told you that they're engaged in keeping your genitalia under surveillance. That's exactly why. But as I state, inside of the library, where the demon is intentionally blocking the bathroom on the second floor, and where my shadow is covering the staircase, that's exactly where the entity is sounding helicopter activity, and that's exactly what's going on outside, which is impossible to hear. While I'm literally standing outside capturing video, you couldn't hear the helicopter that was pacing in front of me, which is a threat, and I'm going to prosecute Michael Dorsey, the Fontana police, for it. You couldn't hear it though. Okay? But the entity is engaging what is demonic. It's as demonic as the fake sun sitting over the demons of the city of Fontana over the library. It's as demonic as the impossible light activity that floats on the roof of the bus, and all over the floor as the demons open and close the door, and all over the ground outside as the demons open and close the same door, and as the fake sun moves and turns as the bus moves for the duration of a route, while the fake sun remains over me. That's demonic. That's not the natural environment, but you're looking at it happening. You are looking at real-time witchcraft. It's Satanism. These are demons. These are not people like you and me. These are demon-possessed people. The entity's engaging in what is, like I stated, stalking with helicopter, knowing exactly where I'm at outside of that bathroom on the second floor, and that's exactly where helicopter activity was heard. That is speaking to everybody that I take pictures of, everyone that I'm referring to, everybody I take a picture of the back of their head while they're sitting there like they don't hear anything because they're desperately stalking and they refuse to stop. They're all stalking, and it is under the guise of what is the entity that's engaged in criminal surveillance, not law enforcement. That's how Fontana police are stalking. This is P.O.C. And the fake moon is over the Fontana Metrolink train station, which lets you know what everybody here is doing. And so does Michael Dorsey stalking you by helicopter. P.O.C. Omnitrans bus 1333, route 82 to Rancho Cucamonga under the fake moon, license plate 1302445. P.O.C. Monitoring with the people of the state that are running behind the bus. It's because they're monitoring. They're not being stupid kids. They're being demons that are monitoring. That's the government that's talking about helicopter. This is P.O.C.
Hi, let me know how it is.
This is bus 1224 and employee 4316. It's 10:08 p.m. and the entity is stalking with light. This is what Omnitrans is doing at the same McDonald's where I'm showing you the fake sun morning, afternoon, into the evening. This is the iteration of stalking with light at night. And you already know that they have impossible light that's trailing on the bus where employee 4316 is gang stalking. Also engaging in what is federal stalking regarding blocking Wi-Fi access, while the employee and everybody on the bus is engaged in monitoring on devices. Again, this is the Omnitrans engagement in the pattern of conduct with the same Fontana Police Department in the city of Ontario. She's gang stalking me with the city of Ontario, which would be the Ontario Police Department, who I've already shown. Well, Fontana has already shown to be obsessively stalking as well, but the Ontario police have already shown themselves to be obsessively stalking. That's all that's going on right now in the city of Ontario, and Omnitrans is doing so on the roads and the highways in concert with the people. It is currently, by the way, 10:08 p.m. My documentation is capturing a screenshot of the Wi-Fi that's unavailable, and they're doing that on the bus, their communication devices, so they're engaged in what is seeking to obstruct publishing. It's going on the internet, just like stalking by helicopters going on the internet, just like people that engage in federal stalking for them to murder are going to prison. But this is what the entity who are mentally ill, the demon possessed, is what they do. And I'm documenting, showing you the process. License 8XQZ641. They're also monitoring my device and blocking Wi-Fi access. This is P.O.C. This is, again, employee number 4316, just like her co-defendant, 4218. That's gang stalking with the city of Fontana, as I documented this morning. This is the entity that's engaged in that ceaseless P.O.C. It is currently 10:09 p.m. Alrighty, so here is the fake moon that is traveling. Employee 4316 is criminally monitoring. This is the pattern of conduct that I already established years ago. This is the federal prosecution of the entity, the U.S. government, as I am prosecuting a transit line that's engaging in criminal surveillance and furtherance of murdering me with the city of Ontario that is stalking by helicopter. After getting off of the bus, operated by employee 4316, who is indeed gang stalking me with the Ontario Police Department and the Fontana Police Department, who are sharing a pattern of conduct, including as the city of Fontana is engaged in what is harassment, psychological torture, sexual violence, as their brethren are being published on the venue of the internet, where the city of Fontana is maintaining surveillance. And the mentally ill is under things like a fake moon and a fake sun, which is over me. And you'll see in the videos that it's over me in Fontana at the Lewis Library, where the fake sun followed me also to Fontana, and where LORENZ and Michael Dorsey are sharing the pattern of conduct. This is where Safeco is located. The domestic terrorists, the gang members of Ontario Police are on video, gang stalking me right here, engaging in what is filling out at section 602 as though a facilitated venue where you're engaged in stalking and you're arriving pursuant to criminal summoning, stalking will of the state, where the car dealership itself is a facilitated venue where surveillance is underway and you don't even have a basis to call the police. That's why that terrorist is going to prison. And you saw all the P.O.C, Sergeant Hall, Lily, all of those demons that are admittedly speaking my name and referring to my documentation where they know they are starring in the federal prosecution and going to prison for it. Those gang members were right here and they're going to prison, including as the Ontario Police is stalking me as I get off another bus. That's the P.O.C. All right, this is the entity that's engaged in that, and the people of the state are all stalking. They're all targeting. They know exactly what I'm saying right now, and they know what I'm doing. And Stater Brothers is already aware that I'm right here en route. Just as clearly, the entity is stalking by helicopter. Stater Brothers that's stalking with the Ontario International Airport over this shopping center where there is no airport on Holt Boulevard. There is no airport anywhere. They're not taking off over this subway, over this over the shopping center right here, because this is where they're taking off. And they did so with about 15 planes, which I captured in video. They did it under the fake sun, and this is the fake moon over that same shopping center. The mentally ill are the demon-possessed that have lost in what is a federal prosecution, while they are learning and the world is witnessing the reality of Christ Jesus and the fact that the demon-possessed are not magical. They're mentally ill because they are oppressed with the spirit of Satan. This is P.O.C. It is currently, as I arrive in Ontario, and this is the prosecution of the city of Ontario, and it's the prosecution of the U.S. government, while the city of Ontario is exposing the U.S. government that's engaged in criminal surveillance. In fact, these are all my shadows. All right, the light activity is a direct indicator regarding the mental illness, the wacky, Looney Tune brains, the sick minds that are engaged in stalking as a population. P.O.C. All right, this is where Southwest Airlines and Kia and the cursed one were stalking. He is the nighttime version of the same exact pattern of conduct. Stalking with light. Ontario police are flying right over my head, just like Fontana police. Just want to be clear on that. License 70487S2, and he's stalking with the employees just like Kia was this morning. And this is the fatty that smells like piss. He smells like urine. He's stalking with the Ontario police in the middle of the night. I'm very much important to him. And he's engaged in gang stalking with his mother, Rosa, who's also going to prison, and gang stalking with his younger siblings who are under 18. The path who's hiding behind the pole, stalking with the Ontario police who just flew over my head. And this is exactly what they were doing under the fake sun that was right here this morning. And there's the fake moon. This is where David Quinones is targeting, sitting in the vehicle as criminals stalking with the government, doing so while they're engaged in surveillance together collectively inside of a bathroom, which is mentally ill and sexually depraved. It's violent and it's also predatory. 7 Yolanda Henry Wendy 972. This is exactly what Kia was doing, what the demons were doing in the Stater Brothers this morning, and that's the unprecedented basis for a federal RICO case. 7 UKX 890, 5X DK 017, 6Z 71175, 8JJ J707. And this is the entity that's acting with impunity. This is the entity that is poisoning the products that I'm purchasing from them. They are indeed going to prison, and that is Kia with the beard, stalking with light. This is mental illness that you're looking at. This is mentally ill conduct. These are demons. All right, they're engaging in this conduct together. Alrighty, aiming light inside of the door when I'm walking in and out, stalking by helicopter, stalking by plane, sightseeing. These are demons. Mike Lorenz knows he's going to prison, and this sort of conduct, when you know you're going to prison, is also going to be relevant to how long he's going to prison, basically not getting out. And it's also the prosecution of Paul Leon, P.O.C. Currently, this is the prosecution of Stater Brothers. So these are the demons. Just want to be clear. These vagina monitors are stalking, engaging in surveillance in Ontario. Stater Brothers is not a grocery store. They're engaged in poisoning the products. They're engaged in stalking in bathrooms, which is sexually violent and mentally ill. And they're engaged in gang stalking, literally inside of a building while the police tell on them and the airport tells on them while they're stalking me. They're going to be prosecuted for that. That's a federal RICO case. So will the people of the state. P.O.C. P.O.C. They're monitoring vagina in the bathroom. Alrighty, this is Ontario Police engaged in sexual assault and battery in concert with the people of the state that are, that's what the vehicle is doing. This is the helicopter over it. They have a child in the vehicle. It's a female, 7 Sam Xavier Sam 022, and that's prison and loss of custody of the child while she's engaged in conspiring the murder of another person and has a child. Those are the demons that are serial killers and sex offenders, and these are the mentally ill engaged in gang stalking. Ricky's inside gang stalking just like Kia was this morning in concert with the rest of the employees who are monitoring right now. That's why they're out the store. The shopping carts is activity. That's Pamela, who's engaged in poisoning me. Ricky's engaged in poisoning me. She said her name is Erica, and if that's not her name, she's going to be prosecuted. She's mentally ill, but that's who's in at the entranceway gang stalking. They're all engaged in poisoning me while the Ontario police are pacing in front and a sex offender engaging in the customary aiming of light. That's sexual assault and battery by light while they're monitoring you. Okay, this is what this aiming light on the wall where my vagina was exposed in that bathroom, and then the entity sharing in sexual assault and battery. This is mentally ill behavior while they are together as a group stalking one person, and they're already prosecuted. Mike Lorenz is already going to prison. So what is he doing? Okay, what's the agency doing? What are they doing? They're not getting any of my money, and they're already being prosecuted for what they've already done and why they were stalking in the first place. What are they actually doing? They're the mentally ill, license 9 Uncle Bob David 348, and they're doing so as a pattern of conduct in Fontana. Now, what do you think Aquanetta thinks she's accomplishing? I don't know, but a name change would have helped before she started gang stalking me, because I'm telling everybody what this thug's name is while she's gang stalking me, and she calls herself a mayor. Michael Dorsey. This is a hoodlum calling himself a chief of police. They're a bunch of sex offenders obsessed with my vagina because they're demons. Demons are sex offenders. Demons are stalkers, and demons are mentally ill. They are not to be confused with normal, sane human beings. They are possessed with the spirit of Satan, and it is occurring within the vessel of a person. So you're seeing the flesh, but they're not normal people, and they are stalking in environments that are absurd. This environment followed from Fontana, and that's how you have El Pollo Loco that's stalking. That's how you have the Ontario Village Shopping Center that's stalking. That's how you have the pattern of conduct by the government stalking, and the government are also the people of the state where they practice that same demented behavioral pattern, stalking. That's how you get that. That's the P.O.C, and this is the entity that's maliciously targeting. The demon, I'm not playing. She's gang stalking me with the minor child. She's losing her custody, using custody. She's engaging in abuse, literally stalking with the police department. The person, she's trying to murder somebody while she's doing so in concert with this is exactly why that department's being disbanded. They're going this, you know how desperate they are right now. They already know that I was going to publish the video about the discussion regarding C. Torres, who even by this video, he know he going to prison. You are straight up and down going straight to prison. And you're engaging in this conduct while you're monitoring my device, and the entity that is so, you saw the wealth of documentation that I published, meaning it's a surefire prosecution. They are so enraged and so angry, even though you're being prosecuted. The federal judge is not caring that they formally would engage in this system with you. Everybody's turning against you, and you're going to prison. And you're going to prison and you're not getting out. You're going to prison, and you are going to be establishing precedent, the example whereby precedent is established for people like you that will not be getting out of prison. Businesses that will no longer exist because of what the pattern of conduct shows. This is an entity that's engaging in that level of conduct when they are sitting back and they know that they are fully exposed, every single facet of the criminal conduct and their sick minds, and even what they want you to think while they engage in it, so that you can understand how mentally ill they are. That is what is known, and that's what's enraging Michael Dorsey stalking me by helicopter after they look at that wealth of evidence published online, and that's also psychotic. To make that decision when you're looking at the fact that you are actually proven to be engaged in it, and then you engage in it in my face. That's unprecedented terrorism, and it's also mentally ill. But these are demons. That's Satan that's enraged. Satan is using people that have thrown their lives away. That's what Michael Dorsey just did. Aquanetta doesn't have any future. I know she's already 70-some, but she does not have a future anywhere. She's going down as a terrorist. And it's the same with these thugs, these hoodlums in Ontario, California, and so on and so forth, because it exceeds well beyond San Bernardino County. This is P.O.C, and this is all to say that they are monitoring my vagina, and that includes Ricky. Okay, Ricky's already been engaged in documented stalking me with the Ontario police, walking out of the venue, which is crossing path, and doing so while the entity is flying over in circles by helicopter. This is the entity who's doing it under a fake moon that's speaking directly to the mental illness that Ricky would like to keep closeted, and it's not. He is a part of the population that is mentally ill, engaging in terrorism, and the terrorists are very perturbed. Okay, they're highly, highly upset because they would like to get away with murder, because they would like to be able to get away with stealing my money. That's not even possible at this point, and you're still looking at them stalking. What department, what sane person, what group of people where not one person can come to their clear senses and say this is not a good idea, especially because there's a record of it. That's letting you know that they're all crazy, okay? Including the ones inside of Stater Brothers, because I'm going to drag that business in court, criminal and civil. Okay, this is P.O.C. They're mentally ill. The mentally ill are violent sex offenders. Okay, this is P.O.C. and it's 11:03 p.m. Flying over the top of my head, just like Michael Dorsey today, upon exiting the Fontana Lewis Library and upon documenting him targeting me in the city of Fontana. And you'll see the images. It's currently right now 11:12 p.m. where this is Mike LORENZ who's being prosecuted, who's going to prison. Mike LORENZ isn't getting out of prison. The weight of this evidence is speaking to terrorists that are not going to prison for 5 years and getting out. He's not getting out of prison. So they're already really old. They're mentally ill. They've engaged in a lot of wicked things. So the entity is going to prison, and many will expire there. I'll put it that way. Mike LORENZ isn't getting out of prison, though. You're not engaging in this level of terrorism. And remember, they're also engaged in sex trafficking. They've engaged in a series of kidnapping. This level of kidnapping, like what Craig Hazelwood is doing, and you're talking about this nonsense about the municipal code, that was an excuse to engage in kidnapping. When, by the way, you're referring to me sleeping outside when you have stolen my money. That's framing. That's so that you can engage in kidnapping. And Mike LORENZ thought that you would never know otherwise. He's not getting out of prison. Okay. And that type of plotting is what you're doing when you are engaging in just this, that you plotted to murder. A police chief that's plotting murder is not getting out of prison. And he shares in that plot to murder with Stater Brothers that's poisoning the food that I buy and is stalking me inside of the store, like Pamela and Ricky and Kia. All right, this is the entity that's engaged in that, flying over me, while you will see I'm uploading on the video of the internet where the Ontario police, the people of the state of California, just like the city of Fontana, are engaged in surveillance, okay? This is the pattern of conduct, and the mentally ill have to be put away in prison like Mike LORENZ, like this agency is demonstrating, for the protection of the public. This is the entity that wants to crash planes, crash trains, crash buses, crash their vehicles in front of into each other, blow up buildings, engage in mass acts of violence, while they are engaging in what they are surveilling everyone and everything, including your genitalia. They need to be put away in prison, and that's what's happening to Mike LORENZ, who is a threat to the public, engaging in this criminal activity as you're witnessing it with the population. Okay, that's not a police chief. That is, in fact, by definition, a terrorist. And Michael Dorsey shares the same mental health issues and the same criminal pattern of conduct. It is currently 11:14 p.m. where the people of the state are stalking with Little Caesars, who maintains light activity and relevant positioning, including the business of that venue, to stalk in the path with light under the fake moon. That's how you know that Little Caesars is a filthy, corrupt business. Engaged in surveillance and further into murdering people, not delivering poor grade pizza. Okay. Kings Inc. also at 628 D as in dog. They're monitoring, and the license plate that you can see parked at the venue, who are engaged in surveillance with the Ontario police that are, I want you to hear, not going anywhere. Yeah, literally stalking. License 59161 handicap. And I'm at what is the Ontario Village Shopping Center, not at the Ontario Town Square where they follow me, where I am sleeping. Okay, Mike LORENZ is a very obsessed stalker, and he has murdered people before. He's a murderer, and that's why he is stalking, and is stalking in the face of being caught. And it's the same with the people of the state. While Mike LORENZ is a murderer with the Ontario police, he's engaging in this murder with the people of the state. The people of the state are serial killers. They commit killings as an entity, and you're looking at the same impunity. This murderer is going to prison while he targeted me, and his mental illness is not stopping his prosecution. I'm here to put him away, and he's not getting out. Okay, and that's even for the benefit of the demons that he's connected to. All right, that's pattern of conduct. And like I said, terrorists are not getting any due process protections. There's no immunity for this. You don't have any immunity. You're not getting any 401k, retirement, final paycheck. You're not going into law enforcement. You're going to prison. This is the reason for that policy, okay? I just want you to, I'm going to capture an image because this is the documentation regarding mentally ill conduct, the psychopathic pacing. Doing so under the fake moon that is over the same Stater Brothers where the fake sun was this morning, and the Ontario police are flying in circles. This pacing conduct, flying in circles, is the direct evidence for mental health professionals to assess mental illness. Okay, you are recognizing the mental illness by the pacing behaviors by the people of the state that do so systematically, and they do so also in a conspicuous manner that is mistaken for normalcy, such as traffic, and it's not. They're a population that's engaged in criminal activity, and that's how you're able to recognize that. That is ripe for the diagnosis of mental health professionals who are equipped to help the public with regard to putting away those that are sick, to providing what is a means of protecting the public by those who are sick, like Mike Lorenz, like the Ontario Police Department. This is P.O.C. All right, I'm going to continue uploading, and the entities continue. And Kings Inc., I just want to be clear, they're all on Instagram, the business itself, and again, who they are. This is all production. I'm just speaking of where I'm at and who's gang stalking. Dee Dee's Discounts, Little Caesars, Stater Brothers, the people that stayed on the roads and the highways, and they're engaging in that P.O.C. That's just who's around me right now. But the entities being prosecuted, the people of the state are going to prison, just like the entity that's stalking in the helicopter. And that's how Mike Lorenz is a threat to his co-defendants now. They're hurting themselves. They're all getting locked up for what they're doing together, and not only that, they're engaging in it while there's conclusive evidence. So while you're stating you were in the tattoo shop, that's all I need, because you're going to prison. What they will also say, but I don't know Erica Spencer, and I don't know, I never, and that's all irrelevant. You were there, you were engaged in stalking with Mike Lorenz, and you're going to prison. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 11:17 p.m. This is psychopathic pacing by the entity that's engaged in federal stalking under Title 18. It is the pattern of conduct, and this is exactly the terrorism that I'm subject to in Fontana, while the entity kept me under surveillance as while I was publishing all day long, and I'm subject to this ongoing campaign of stalking and psychological torture and furtherance of murdering me, and also trying to do this, and the entity engages in this sort of conduct and then tries to sit back and watch a person engage in voyeurism and then try to depict them as crazy. And what Mike Lorenz didn't calculate, what Michael Dorsey did not consider, is the fact that I'm here to prosecute them for that. Meaning, no psychological torture tactics are working against me. I'm going to expose it and educate the public about it and put them where they belong, because the mentally ill employ psychological torture tactics. They're suicidal and they're highly malicious. They're psychopathic. And that's the purpose of what is stalking by helicopters. It is terror in the mind and heart of an American citizen who is suffering by themselves, while a bunch of psychopaths are sitting around acting like they are oblivious to it, and they're all stalking you together and deriving pleasure out of it. That is not a police chief, and that's going to prison. This is P.O.C. It is currently 11:19 p.m. Flying over the top of my head again. This is what you need to be aware of. They are unhinged, maniacal psychopaths. Very violent serial killers and sex offenders. Okay? The entity is very triggered by me because I'm exposing them. And they would, in other words, to put it in these terms, I'm going to put it to you in these terms because this is what this is exhibiting. This is an agency that would love to use their weapons to blow my brains out. And that's exactly the threat that is posed, and that's why this particular demon is going to prison and Mike Lorenz is going to prison, and so is Paul Leon. This type of ongoing conduct, they're obsessed with me at 11 o'clock. It's 11:22 p.m., flying in circles over my head. That's as violent as Fontana police got also. So triggered. You fly, room. You see in the video, they came straight for me and flew right over while I was at the parking garage area. This is what the Ontario Police Department are doing, and that's exactly the threat that is posed when they're representing those agencies and they're stalking you. It is the entity that would like to take their weapons and blow your brains out. That is exactly why they're going to prison. Mike Lorenz is going to prison because the entire Ontario Police Department is engaging in a pattern of conduct that he shares in. That's called being a terrorist leader. Okay? This is the P.O.C. And the entity is very much triggered while they are proven as stalkers. And I just sit back and document it for you. All right, he's going to prison indeed, but I want you to listen to what is mental illness. That's Little Caesars stalking with the Ontario Police Department. Okay, the ongoing psychopathic pacing that the people of the state, you see them doing. Somebody stalking on the side of the road with light activity, Amazon Prime, Omnitrans, United States Postal Service, a demon at a gas stall, stalking with light, and then the entity is going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. That's what a psychopath is doing in a helicopter right now. Very mentally ill. Under a fake moon. Do you know how many people the Ontario Police Department have murdered? For money. They're paid serial killers. And it's over for them. And that is what is so unhinged. And this is literally going in court. They're getting serious time. It's both disturbing and it's also satisfying, because they are unloading with regard to what is referred to as crashing out, so that you can see how crazy. And this is the entity that tried to defame my character with Tracy Banks, the nerve. Don't forget what C. Torres, what they're all stating, what they wrote on paper. While they're doing this at the same time, you're going to prison and you are not getting out. That is a plot to murder me, and you are an entire psychopath. All of them. They're going to prison. And in the face of going to prison, they engage in more and more stalking and harassment. They're going to prison and they're not getting out. They are not getting out. It's 11:24 p.m. What's so funny is that the entity is the next day that's stalking you in the library, and they all are like nothing is happening. And this is how you're able to recognize the mental illness of a population. That this is what they're doing on an ongoing daily basis, and then they're stalking in the library like nothing is happening. And that's because it's really not delusion. They're very much aware, but you need to understand that they are desperate. And as psychotic, they refuse to stop stalking. And that's why they keep showing up to the library and sitting next to me and walking around and being present and being documented, and they know it because they refuse to stop stalking. They refuse. Now, that is going to be assessed just with regard to a foreign terrorist who refuses to stand down and stop threatening the United States, publicly threatening the United States, making statements threatening the United States, refusing to renege on those statements, refusing to stop engaging in what is provocations toward the United States. What do you think the United States typically responds with that as? We're not particularly apprehensive to make a first move, an offensive move. This is domestic terrorism. This is what the terrorists are engaging in against American citizens. This is war against American citizens by the government, who refuses to stand down when they are the offensive. Okay, they're on the offensive. This, I'm putting it into context for you. This is as serious as it's going to be taken. This is no longer war with those outside of the country. This is domestic terrorists who are attacking American citizens. Refusing to stop. Refusing. It's not just civil damages, and it will be civil damages that make sure that that company can't even survive. It's not going to survive after you drain the damages, okay? It's not, that's insufficient. You're losing your liberty. You're losing the ability to walk free, and I'm taking all of the money, because it's not even about a lottery even though you deserve to be compensated and made whole in as much as you can, because you cannot even quantify that. Remember, I'm advocating on behalf of the ordinary target individual. What did you see this morning? Plane after plane after plane, and they let you know who they are. FedEx let you know that they're a terrorist. Southwest Airlines let you know that they're a terrorist. You already knew this, but they put a banner this morning. Stater Brothers let you know that they're a terrorist. Omnitrans let you know that they're a terrorist. Okay, the entity that's stalking by planes, Alaska Airlines lets you know they're a terrorist. UPS lets you know that they're a terrorist. They've already done that. You saw them crash into Arkansas. Crash in Kentucky, which was not an accident. They're letting you know that they're a terrorist while they stalk right now as I refer to them. There's no coincidences here. The demon-possessed are literally underneath, they're beneath me, and they do as it is that I tell you that they do. That is literally stalking that they do physically, and stalking that they do with regard to following me, following my lead as I speak about their violations, so they commit them. And you know what else I'm speaking of that's also going to happen, that they're also going to do? They're getting locked up and they're going to prison. That's what's also, they're going to do that as well. They're going to submit to that as well. All right, and that was plane activity at 11:28 p.m. at the Ontario Village Shopping Center. There weren't even any flights this morning when they were stalking at the Ontario Town Square, as though that sound was a takeoff. Okay, the entities engaged in what is stalking at the sound of my voice, at my cue. Those are acts of war against American citizens. Those are acts of war. What Stater Brothers is doing in concert with the government, that's an act of war. The entity makes up what are covert means of surveillance, meaning this country is filled with enemies of this country, enemies to American citizens. And they are appearing as though behaving only on the surface, because I've shown you the P.O.C, so now we're looking beneath the surface. You know that they are clearly seen in the specific environment and their behavioral pattern. But they are surrounding, the enemy is in the country, amongst us, attacking us, unbeknownst to us before, mysteriously, prior to this evidence, this inescapable, inevitable, insurmountable evidence. It's no conspiracy theories anymore over here. And now this is speaking to what are the reality that the enemy of this country is in the country and is attacking American citizens. Okay, so you're talking about the strong arm of the federal government that's going to disable at every level. Okay, the enemies are literally making up the population. That's just putting that into perspective for you. The level of mental illness is absurd, and it's a threat. Okay, and civil damages do not even begin to address that. Okay, that's relevant to the court, the criminal and the civil justice system, the court system. That is not addressing the threat to American citizens. A paycheck, in other words, is not going to suffice. That's only the beginning that a business should have to compensate for terrorizing you and furtherance of plotting to murder you. And that's helping their business. That's keeping their business concealed as a means of criminal surveillance by the government. While they're acting like they're a private company, they're not a private company. None of these are private companies. They are subservient to this. This is the beast system, where the enemy is right here in the country with us. The enemy isn't outside. It's right here, inside. It's what's stalking in planes and helicopters. It's what's stalking in the neighborhood. It's what's stalking on the roads and the highways. It's what's stalking in the neighborhood library, at the gas station, in the restaurant, in the libraries. All right? In the hospitals, where you have no privacy, where you're being psychologically tormented, or you are being harassed. Dare you to even refer to or think of or consider your constitutional rights. That's the enemy. That's the enemy that also wants to take your life when you seek to enforce your rights. Okay, I'm going to get pictures right now. The entity is stalking. I showed you where the Ontario police were stalking. There's the car dealership Safeco. There's nothing back there but houses. This is where the Ontario International Airport, by my cue, is stalking. And so are the people of the state. Okay, people like Kia, like I said this morning, they're going to prison. Because this is what's stalking. The demons that's in the parking lot stalking right now, they go right into the bathroom. They go into the grocery store stalking, and it's not helping. Because those demons at Stater Brothers, they're going to prison. They're regularly documented gang stalking me. In concert with a population of demons that go in and purchase some a 6-pack of beer or soda or bread, and they go back home one after another gang stalking. That's all they're doing is stalking as a population. They're maintaining surveillance. But the demons inside of Stater Brothers, they're going to prison for it. Systematically engaging in that pattern of conduct. Oh, the patrons as well. Those are demons as well. And if I catch you like I'm documenting now, you stalking with the police, you're going to prison. You're a serial stalker like the cursed womb that's engaging in gang stalking me with the police, the airport, and the fire department, and engaging in what is harassing me with Stater Brothers, you're going to prison. Okay? While you're acting like you're oblivious to the documentation, you can look to the left and right like nothing's happening. Something very real is happening, like you being committed with that evidence. Just because they act like it's not happening doesn't mean the federal government is going to, no one's disregarding it. They're mentally ill. You want to act like you're mentally ill, you're going to be treated like you're mentally ill. Including those stalking in planes and helicopters. This is P.O.C. That's the entity that is stalking at 11:32 p.m. And you're going to recall, listen to the tape. They're all stalking me, and they're also following my lead. As I refer to the demons of and the terrorists that are Alan D. Wapner and Jim Bowman, all right, and Julia Gu, and all these demons that are on the so-called the so-called airport leadership board, they're being exposed as terrorists, and they're going to be subject to a prosecution. They're not keeping those positions, and they're also not going to be enriched anymore with regard to facilitating terrorism. And there's a federal consequence for that. A lot of people are going to be federally prosecuted as terrorists and going to prison because gang stalking necessarily and naturally includes a lot of people. A lot. You're talking about all of the officials, all of the leadership in the city. Then you're getting to the county because it's including all of the state. All right, that's the P.O.C, however, and that's the entity that's engaging in that. And as I refer to that, so roll the tape back because they're stalking, period. You're listening to the level of stalking. As I refer to the stalker appears. That is what is keeping my vagina under surveillance, very much engaged in genitalia detail. Okay, that's the entity that's doing so without any consent. Okay, they're all dead. They're puppets. These are demon-possessed people, and they are residing within the country, and they are a threat to the country. Those that are immigrants that have been granted the privilege to be here, these are enemies of the state that the government that is monitoring us permitted to be here to keep us under surveillance. They are literally enemies. This is the entity that's engaging in the U.S. government. Think about that. The entity that is gang stalking us has permitted those that are engaging in the surveillance system. You're getting in when you're subservient to the system. You're getting in unless the entity is letting you in to target you, but you're getting in as one that is subservient to the system, and they know who you are. The entity that is here as immigrants are terrorists that the entity that is a domestic terrorist has permitted to come and engage in targeting American citizens. They're being deported. This is P.O.C. It is currently 11:35 p.m. Alrighty, be mindful of the entity that is east of this location hovering over me at the Ontario Town Square, just like the Ontario police that are stalking me at the Ontario Town Square. Alright, this is maintaining a record because the entity is already, they're already subject to prison, and I'm going to prosecute literally the commercial airlines themselves for criminal activity, and that's going to be groundbreaking, that companies are going to be prosecuted for criminal activity. Moreover, criminal surveillance with the government and furtherance of murdering American citizens, engaging in, well, essentially companies, corporations that are going to be prosecuted as terrorists, because that's literally what they are, and that's what the airline companies are. And they're doing at nightfall under the fake moon. Science is speaking to what it's targeting, while the entity is stalking by the same entity. Okay, so the demons of the Ontario police are just hovering above the building, while the demons of the Ontario International Airport are stalking by plane. That's the guise of the audible activity. Okay, this is psychopathic pacing. It's going on the playlist regarding the mental illness that's exhibited in the behavior of the demon possessed who are stalking in planes and helicopters. This is the fake moon. Okay, the environment is also relevant to the entity that's going to be subject to mental examinations, the mentally ill that are engaged in the gang stalking. All right, and they're doing so with the people of the state. They're in their vehicles, these vehicles, buildings. Little Caesars is maintaining activity. They're pacing on Holt Boulevard. They're pacing on Bonita. They're living in the housing area. I am not absent demons that are stalking right now. Okay, this is P.O.C. The entity is engaging in this P.O.C. while they are at 11:38 at night, stalking as an airport, which I said before, the entity is doing so with Mike Lorenz at all times. What the city of Ontario is doing is in furtherance of Mike Lorenz committing kidnapping and murder. Okay, this is a failed effort at trying to frame somebody else for murder. Mike Lorenz is going down in history for what is not only an egregious, horrible person, a murderer, a criminal that tried to cloak himself as a chief of police, but he's going down as an absurdly idiotic actor who just literally went haywire and lost it in front of the world when he was caught by somebody he thought was, I don't know what he thought, but clearly what he thinks is not based in sanity or reality. They're flying in circles in the middle of the night. This is somebody that must be wearing a diaper, that must be wearing a helmet. Okay, this is an entity that's engaged in that level of mentally ill behavior. So it doesn't matter what mentally ill people think. Mentally ill people are going to be put in facilities where the public will be protected from them. This is P.O.C., the Ontario Police Department, in other words. This is what you're looking at. They shall be no more. They're going bye-bye. P.O.C.